Chapter 1057. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but laugh. The people around them were originally quietly listening to the women in the corner, but Chu Liyue's laughter immediately broke the silence. Lin Tianfeng and the others looked over strangely. The commotion here also attracted the attention of the women who were chatting happily not far away. They quickly stopped and looked over nervously. It was fine for them to talk like this in private, but if someone with ulterior motives overheard, when they saw Hu Yang standing at the front, the women's faces turned slightly pale, but they secretly heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. This was because Hu Yang wasn't directly responsible for looking after them. They quickly calmed down, looked at each other, and walked over. "Greetings, Lord Hu." The three women bowed in unison. They were all beautiful, slender, and dainty. Their movements were very graceful and dignified. It was obvious that they had learned the relevant etiquette before, and it was impossible to find fault with them. Hu Yang nodded and pointed to Lin Tianfeng. "This is clan leader Lin of Heavenly Cave Cliff." Heavenly Cave Cliff. The women showed a look of understanding, then smiled and bowed. "Greetings, clan leader Lin. I've heard of your name for a long time, and seeing you today, I can see that you live up to your reputation." These words were said very politely and also very flattering. It would be better if they could cover up the contempt and disdain in their eyes. Lin Tianfeng was able to keep his composure and didn't argue with them. His expression was calm and he didn't reveal anything. "Ladies, you're too polite. If I'm selected this time, I'll be the one to bow to you in the future." The expressions of the women on the other side changed instantly. Wasn't he clearly mocking them? But considering the other party's identity and the fact that Hu Yang and the others were standing around, they didn't want to make things too ugly, so they swallowed their anger and forced a smile. "Not at all. I'm just a lowly person, how could I dare to have such extravagant hopes?" Lin Qifei suddenly coughed. Hearing this, Lin Tianfeng immediately turned around and asked worriedly, "Jifei, are you feeling unwell?" Hu Yang said, "Fourth young master Lin, this way please." As he spoke, he led his men all the way to the side hall. Chu Liyue was about to follow, but was suddenly stopped by those women. "Miss, please wait." Chu Liyue stopped in her tracks and looked back. "Is something the matter?" A beautiful woman in a lotus-colored dress smiled slightly, but there was no smile in her eyes. "May I ask, what were you laughing at just now?" Chu Liyue also laughed. "It's nothing. I just thought of something and chuckled." "What's wrong? Could it be that the few of you have something against this?" The woman sneered and took a few steps forward, approaching Chu Liyue. The three women who had originally planned to follow Lin Tianfeng and the others hurriedly stepped forward and stood beside Chu Liyue. "What are you trying to do?" "We don't want to do anything. It's just that this lady seemed to be mocking us just now. We just want to clarify things." The woman in the lotus-colored dress stared at Chu Liyue with a mocking gaze. Chu Liyue gave the others a reassuring look and smiled faintly. "I'm not mocking you, but I think what you said makes a lot of sense. No matter who you are, as long as you're chosen, you'll have a meteoric rise. Besides, wrong? His Highness the Son of Saint is indeed enchanting, noble, and graceful." She suddenly paused. "His Highness the Son of Saint is indeed what?" The women opposite her asked anxiously. "His Highness the Son of Saint is indeed the dream man of many women." Chu Liyue smiled and said word by word. Do I need you to tell me that? But someone like you won't have a chance." The woman in the lotus-colored dress impudently sized up Chu Liyue. The mocking expression on her face was enough to explain everything. Show some respect. Miss Dugu is an 8th-grade celestial physician. She's also an honored guest of Heavenly Cave Cliff." The women beside Chu Liyue couldn't help but retort. Only then did the women opposite her realize that this ordinary-looking woman in front of them didn't seem to be participating in the consort selection hall this time. There was a little boy standing next to her. Just as the two sides were about to continue arguing, Chu Liyue said, "Forget it, let's go back first." She wasn't interested in wasting time here with these people. However, her words were a sign of weakness in the eyes of the other party. After they turned and left, the women didn't lower their voices and were still full of mockery. "At least she knows her place. I'm afraid no man will take a second look at her if she goes out like this. It's useless even if she's beautiful. Heavenly Cave Cliff. I thought they'd tactfully give up. Who knew that they'd be so thick-skinned and come? What a pity. If we came a little earlier and changed our residence, we wouldn't have to squeeze in with them. Forget it, there's nothing to say to these people. Let's go back and prepare first. The birthday banquet is about to begin. Those people from Cold Mountain Valley are too much." A woman finally couldn't help but whisper. "They're clearly not much stronger than us. What right do they have to be so arrogant? Chu Liyue smiled indifferently. If they want to make a scene, let them. We just have to do our own thing. Miss Dugu, aren't you angry? Another woman asked curiously. They said that about you. Chu Liyue touched her face and nodded thoughtfully. Actually, what they said isn't without reason. This face is indeed not qualified to participate in the consort selection hall. The women looked at each other speechlessly. Dugu, you really didn't seem to care about this at all. Chu Liyue walked into the room, took Lin Qifei's pulse and handed over a pill. This is the last one. I'll continue to refine it when I have time. You should be able to recover more than half in a month or so. It's just that fourth young master's body has been burdened by illness for many years. He needs to rest well for about a year or so before he can fully recover. Lin Qifei nodded lightly. Thank you. Master Lin, the people from Cold Mountain Valley have already taken the main hall. I'll have to trouble you to stay in this side hall for the time being. Hu Yang sighed and said. Lin Tianfeng wanted to say something but stopped. In the end he didn't flare up and only nodded. At this moment, a series of familiar footsteps suddenly came from outside. Chu Liyue seemed to sense something and looked back. A figure appeared at the door. It was Yanqing. Hu Yang was shocked. He hurried forward and asked respectfully. Lord Yanqing, why are you here? Yanqing was in a hurry. Her eyes quickly searched the room. When she saw Chu Liyue, her heart skipped a beat. Chu Liyue smiled, her red lips slightly opened. Lord Yanqing? Chapter 1058. Yanqing hurriedly walked to Chu Liyue and was about to speak when the girl suddenly stepped forward. Greetings, Lord Yanqing. I am Dugu, said Chu Liyue with a smile and bowed at the same time. Yanqing's legs turned to jelly, and he almost knelt on the ground. You, he spoke in a trembling voice, but before he could say anything he saw Chu Liyue's bright black eyes. That pair of star-like eyes were glowing with a clear and bright light. Yanqing choked and the rest of his words were stuck in his throat. He complained incessantly in his heart. His Highness was supposed to come, but he was stopped by Jiang Jiwan. Hearing that it had something to do with the academy, His Highness temporarily stayed behind and let him come first. Yanqing had already expected that Chu Liyue would not be in a good mood after knowing these things. She might be angry or reprimanded, but he did not expect that she would not even want to admit her identity. But this was even scarier than those reactions. Yanqing regretted it for a moment. He should have waited to come with His Highness. Why did he have to become cannon fodder now? Only then did the surrounding people realize that the atmosphere between the two was very unusual. Hu Yang's eyes darted back and forth between the two of them, and he asked tentatively. Lord Yanqing, are you acquainted with Miss Dugu? Yanqing swallowed his saliva with difficulty. His throat was tight. Yes. I have met Lord Yanqing a few times before, but at that time I did not know Lord Yanqing's identity. Only today did I know that Lord Yanqing's identity is so impressive. Chu Liyue responded smoothly, and the smile on her face did not diminish at all. She looked very relaxed. However, in the ears of the people around them, these words were no different from a clap of thunder. Dugu actually knows Yanqing? He was the closest confidant of His Highness the Saint. Such a status was enough to kill 90% of the people in Yuntian Tower. Yanqing's eyes twitched. Every word that came out of Chu Liyue's mouth was like roasting him on a rack. Lin Tianfeng looked on in amazement from the side. Suddenly, a white light flashed in his mind. Wait a minute. Dugu was an outsider, so she shouldn't have been to the Divine Ruins world before. In that case, did the two of them know each other outside the Divine Ruins realm? Looking at the reactions of the two people, especially the expression of this Yanqing, how could it be that they had only met a few times? Could it be? Lin Tianfeng had a bold and absurd conjecture. This idea was so absurd that just thinking about it made his heart beat uncontrollably. He almost subconsciously looked at Lin Qifei, only to see that Lin Qifei was also observing the two people thoughtfully. The surrounding people made Yanqing feel uneasy. He swallowed hard. Miss Dugu, may I have a word with you? The already quiet room became even more silent. Who was Yanqing? With his status, how could he speak so politely to a woman? In fact, this was no longer just politeness. It was almost like he was begging. Everyone present was shocked. Only the person in question, Chu Liyue, didn't look surprised at all. In fact, the smile on his face deepened. Sure. Yanqing took a deep breath and stretched out his hand. This way, please. After Yanqing and Chu Liyue left, the remaining people fell into a long silence. After an unknown period of time, Hu Yang sucked in a breath of cold air. He looked at Lin Tianfeng in disbelief and said anxiously, Patriarch Lin, Miss Dugu knows Lord Yanqing. Why didn't you say so earlier? Lin Tianfeng said innocently. I didn't know. How long had they known Duguyu? How could they know everything? Right now he was also filled with shock, alright? Oh my god, Lord Yanqing. Is he the Yanqing by His Highness the Holy Sun's side? A woman beside him widened her eyes and asked cautiously. Wu Yang sighed. Other than him, who else could it be? The young ladies looked at each other in dismay, their faces filled with shock. I heard that Lord Yanqing is one of His Highness the Holy Sun's most trusted confidants. He also has a high status in the Yuntian Tower. I didn't expect Miss Dugu to know him. From what they said, it seems like they met outside the world of God. I didn't expect Miss Dugu to have such a relationship. They seem to be very close. Anyone with eyes could see that Yanqing's attitude in front of Duguyu was very different. Wu Yang came back to his senses. He couldn't hide the excitement on his face. This Miss Dugu is too much. She should have said so earlier. With this relationship, their situation in the Yuntian Tower would be much better than before. Another woman said weakly. Didn't she say that she didn't know Lord Yanqing's identity and only found out after coming here? She probably didn't expect this to happen, right? However, Hu Yang laughed out loud. Actually, that's not important. Miss Dugu knows Lord Yanqing. Who knows how much more convenient it will be for all of you in the future. Lord Yanqing has always been a cold-hearted person. He is only loyal to His Highness the Holy Sun. He doesn't care about most of the others. To be able to establish a relationship with him, TSK. He smiled at Lin Tianfeng and said, Lin Tianfeng. Master Lin, many of the clans have tried to establish a good relationship with Lord Yanqing, but to no avail. You guys are much better than them. The Lin family of Cave Heaven Cliff had always been the weakest among the clans. Who would have thought that they would be so lucky? Lin Tianfeng laughed and then looked at Lin Qifei. Could it be that guess was true? Yanqing is guilty. Please punish me, Miss Lu Liyue. As soon as Yanqing entered the room, he knelt down on one knee and admitted his mistake. Chu Liyue widened her eyes slightly as if she were shocked. Lord Yanqing, what are you doing? Please get up. I can't accept this bow. If outsiders know about this, it will be inappropriate. Yanqing smiled bitterly and begged, Don't worry. Please don't make fun of me. I had no choice but to hide it from you. Oh? No choice? So, your master was also forced to do it? Chu Liyue raised her eyebrows slightly. Yanqing choked. If I didn't come this time, I'm afraid that His Highness would have chosen a harem and lived a carefree life here, right? This. You really misunderstood. There are all kinds of beauties here. If I were a man, I would be tempted to see them. Yanqing felt suffocated. For the first time he blamed his master. Why should his subordinate bear the responsibility for the trouble he caused? Yanqing felt a headache coming on. Miss Luyu, His Highness wanted to pick you up personally, but Miss Jiang came to him at the last minute, so His Highness asked me to come first. It's not good to live in Wind Lotus Garden. Why don't you come with me first? Chu Liyue crossed her arms and smiled faintly. Miss Jiang? Chapter 1059. Rumor had it that Lord Yanqing was a knife in the hands of the saint. With a cold face and a cold heart, he was decisive in killing. Even if he had killed thousands of people and fought on the battlefield, he would still be cold and cruel. But today he knew how to write the word, scared, for the first time. Chu Liyue was smiling, but Yanqing felt a chill down his spine. He felt that he had said something wrong. And it was not just a little wrong but a big mistake. He struggled to say, No, His Highness has something important to discuss with that person. It's not about anything else. Oh. Chu Liyue nodded. It seems that it's really something important. But it doesn't matter if he doesn't come. The consort selection hall is just around the corner. He must be very busy. Yanqing felt that it was useless to keep struggling. He closed his eyes in despair. Ms. Liyue, take it that I'm begging you. Please follow me up first. His Highness will be worried if he doesn't see you later. I'm an outsider. Now I can come to the Yuntian Tower because of my relationship with the Lin family of Dongtian Cliff. Naturally, I have to go with them. How can I just leave like this? Chu Liyue refused without thinking. She didn't have to come because he didn't want to, but she had to go because he wanted her to? How could there be such a good thing in the world? Besides, why can't I see him? In 4 hours the birthday banquet will start. Won't we see him then? But, it's really inconvenient for you to stay here, Yanqing wanted to persuade her again. but when he looked up and saw Chu Liyue's faint smile, he swallowed the rest of his words and changed the topic. Then I'll listen to you. If there's anything, just let me know. Chu Liyue waved his hand. Okay, since you've said it out loud, I'll see what I can do. Let's go. Although Chu Liyue urged her to leave, Yanqing still respectfully sent her back to her previous place. When the two of them arrived at the door of the room, everyone in the room heard the commotion and looked over. Then, I'll leave first. After Yanqing finished speaking and saw Chu Liyue nod, she turned around and left. After taking a step forward, he turned back to look at Hu Yang. You must take good care of Miss Dugu and the others. Hu Yang hurriedly said, I understand. Rest assured, Madam Yanqing. Yanqing nodded. Because he failed to invite Chu Liyue up, he left with a heavy heart. On the other hand, Chu Liyue's expression remained the same. He walked straight to a nearby chair and sat down as if nothing had happened. This contrast was even more shocking to the crowd. Miss Dugu, are you satisfied with this place? Hu Yang carefully asked. In truth, he had been very polite to Lin Tianfeng and the others, but now he was even more respectful to Chu Liyue. Madame Yanqing had said to take good care of these people before she left, but who couldn't tell that she was referring to Duguyu? Even a ghost wouldn't believe that there was no relationship between them. Chu Liyue looked around and smiled. It's pretty good. In the eyes of Hu Yang, Yanqing and the others, this place might not be good enough, but in reality, it was more luxurious and noble than most of the palaces she had seen before. Moreover, it wasn't the exaggerated kind of grandeur, but the kind of nobility that only a top-notch family with a deep foundation and a long history could exude. No wonder Rongxiu was so rich. With such a large family fortune, why worry about money? Hu Yang's impression of Chu Liyue improved. It was fine that she didn't know about Madame Yanqing's identity, but now that she didn't intend to use this relationship to her own benefit. Moreover, her attitude was as amiable as before. How rare. The smile on his face became more genuine. That's good, that's good. I'll be staying next door. If there's anything you need, just tell me. With that, he clasped his hands at Chu Liyue, Lin Tianfeng, and the others before leaving. The remaining people all looked at Chu Liyue with different expressions. Chu Liyue raised her gaze slightly and looked at the others. She smiled and said, Why is everyone looking at me like that? What do you think? Miss Dugu, I didn't expect that you and Madame Yanqing would have such fate. The girls were more simple-minded and didn't have so many scruples, so they simply spoke directly. How did you know each other? Chu Liyue sipped her tea and said slowly, It's just a coincidence. It's just a coincidence. There's nothing much to say about it. Could it be that she actually knew him because of his master? Hearing this ambiguous answer, the girls looked at each other in dismay, somewhat disappointed. It was as good as not saying anything. All right, it's getting late. His Highness the Saint's birthday banquet is about to begin. You can all go and prepare yourselves. Lin Tianfeng suddenly said. With his reminder, the girls suddenly came to their senses. That's right. The main reason they came here was the consort selection ceremony. In a while, the carefully selected noble ladies of each tribe would all appear together. At that time, naturally, there would be a competition for beauty. Although they knew that they had no hope of being selected, they still had to prepare carefully so as not to embarrass Cave Heaven Cliff. The girls excused themselves and left together. Lin Mo said to the two remaining elders. Then let's go first. Lu Ruhai frowned and glanced at Chu Liyue. Sensing his gaze, Chu Liyue turned her gaze. The two looked at each other for a moment. Lu Ruhai was the first to look away. With a cold snort, he waved his sleeves and walked out. Lin Mo coughed awkwardly and tried to persuade Chu Liyue. Miss Dugu, don't worry. Ruhai is just a little hot-tempered. He doesn't mean to target you, so don't mind him. Even if he did have some thoughts before, now that he knew that Duguyu was acquainted with Lord Yanqing, he should have dismissed them. Chu Liyue's eyes curved into crescents. Thank you for your concern, Elder Lin Mo. I know all of this. Soon only Lin Tianfeng and his son Chu Liyue and Debao were left in the room. Lin Tianfeng looked at Chu Liyue with a complicated gaze, as if he wanted to say something but stopped. Patriarch Lin, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Chu Liyue said directly. Lin Tianfeng paused. Miss Dugu, I don't mean to offend you, but I feel that this matter is really strange. You and that Lord Yanqing. Speaking of this, he glanced at Debao, who had been so quiet that it was as if he didn't exist, and a trace of hesitation appeared on his face. Patriarch Lin, if you have something to say, then just say it. If I can listen, so can Debao. Hearing her words, Lin Tianfeng gritted his teeth. Actually, what I want to ask is, Is Lord Yanqing the person Miss Dugu mentioned before? That is, Debao's birth, crack. Debao split the table next to him in half. Chapter 1060. Cough. Chu Luiyue didn't expect Lin Tianfeng to think that way. She almost couldn't breathe properly. Hearing this, she knew that something was wrong and quickly grabbed Debao's other hand. Debao. Dugu Mabao immediately calmed down when her soft hand covered his slightly cold one. He glanced at Lin Tianfeng, his eyes extremely cold. A cold glint flashed through those devilish purple eyes. Lin Tianfeng suddenly felt a chill in his heart, as if a chill had risen from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head. But Dugu Mabao's face was immediately pushed away by Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue looked at him in fear. Master, are you really not afraid of your identity being exposed? Dugu Mabao's eyes flashed. He's asking for death. Chu Luiyue closed her eyes. He didn't do it on purpose. I'll explain it for you later. Tell me, what's the point of looking at him like that, other than arousing suspicion? I can kill him. Dugu Mabao didn't speak, but his expression was extremely serious. As long as he wanted to, Lin Tianfeng would definitely not be able to leave alive. Chu Luiyue, master is master. Lin Tianfeng was the cliff master of the Heavenly Cave Cliff, and he was a powerhouse who had completely entered the realm of the gods. But Dugu Mabao didn't seem to care at all. Chu Luiyue knew him too well. If he said that he could kill Lin Tianfeng with his gaze, then he could definitely do it. Chu Luiyue closed her eyes and quickly leaned over to his ear, warning him in an extremely weak voice. If you don't cooperate, I'll spank you in public. Dugu Mabao suddenly looked up, but Chu Luiyue pressed him on the shoulder. Dugu Mabao. Master Lin, don't mind him. This child is more sensitive and precocious. It's inevitable that he would get emotional when he heard this. It's my fault, I didn't think it through before. Chu Luiyue explained as he restrained Dugu Mabao. Also that. You've really misunderstood. Yanqing and I. Master, it's not what you think. Lin Tianfeng was skeptical. If it wasn't this relationship, then what relationship could it be? Lord Yanqing was famous for being a cold-faced king of hell. If they had only met a few times, why would it be like this? Moreover, his gaze landed on the table that had been shattered by Dugu Mabao, and his heart still palpitated. How could this be the strength of a 3-year-old child? Moreover, he had clearly sensed a ghastly killing intent just now. Father, S's. Lin Zhifei suddenly said. Lin Tianfeng's tired? That's right. After running around for so long, your body can't take it for the time being. Then you should rest first. I won't disturb you. After he finished speaking, he looked at Chu Luiyue questioningly. Lin Zhifei said, I'd like to ask Miss Dugu to stay and discuss the follow-up treatment. Lin Tianfeng realized that his son wanted to chase him out, so he didn't say anything more and left after a few words of advice. After he left, the room calmed down again. Chu Luiyue then let go of Dugu Mabao. Dugu Mabao was no longer angry. He still had a cold expression on his face, but he didn't make a move in the end. Miss Dugu, please forgive my father for offending you just now, Lin Zhifei said. Chu Luiyue waved his hand. It's nothing. Master Lin is also concerned about helping me. I understand. It's just that Master Yanqing and I. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but smile bitterly. She never thought that things would develop in such a way. Fourth young master, you don't think so too, do you? Lin Zhifei shook his head. I believe Miss Dugu's words. He is not the person you're looking for. Chu Luiyue looked at him with some surprise. Oh, fourth young master, why are you so sure? Thinking back to what happened just now, it seemed that it was easy to misunderstand. But Lin Zhifei's tone seemed to be very certain. Lin Zhifei smiled faintly. Intuition. The atmosphere between the two of them was indeed unusual. It wasn't an ordinary friendship that they had met a few times, but it was definitely not what Lin Tianfeng had guessed. The main reason why he was so sure was actually because of her. When she saw Master Yanqing, her eyes didn't shine brightly. It was completely different from the way she looked when she mentioned that person that day. So, the person she was looking for was definitely someone else. Chu Luiyue's red lips curled slightly. Lin Zhifei was much smarter and sharper than Lin Tianfeng. Actually, if Miss Dugu really wants to find that person, why don't you just ask Master Yanqing for help? His status in the Yuntian Tower is not low. If he agrees to help, it should save a lot of effort. Lin Zhifei didn't intend to ask about the matter between Chu Luiyue and Yanqing, so he went back to the topic. Chu Luiyue rested her chin on one hand, looking thoughtful. After a moment she laughed. That's not necessary. His Highness the Son of God's banquet is about to start. Everyone should be there by then. I think we should be able to find him. This was his birthday banquet, and also his concubine selection hall. You should be there, right? 2 hours passed quickly. Chu Luiyue was adjusting her breath in her room when she suddenly heard the deep and melodious sound of a bell coming from outside. Dong, the sound of the bell quickly spread and fell clearly into everyone's ears. Chu Luiyue suddenly opened her eyes. Her eyes were as bright as the stars. She looked outside through the window. The birthday banquet was about to begin. Digression, continued at 6 p.m., the list of winners of the August-related activities. 1. Xiaoxiang Academy Star of the Monthly Votes. A Pack of Little Demons, 42 votes. Star of the Review. Memories Yen Io 2. QQ Reading Star of the Review. Yinyu Tonglu, 155 votes. Star of the Review. Ice Cream, Xiaojiu. Inseparable friends on the above list. Please add the group in 3 days and privately contact the group leader to receive the related gifts. Chapter 1061. Knock knock. Hu Yang's voice came from outside the door. Miss Dugu, it's time for us to set off. Coming. Chu Luiyue replied and turned to look at Dugu Mabao. Let's go to Bao? Dugu Mabao was sitting with his back facing her. He didn't move when he heard that, and his small back view exuded a cold aura. Chu Luiyue coughed and walked over. From the side, Dugu Mabao had his arms crossed and his eyes closed. His thick eyelashes were slightly curled. Although his small face was cold, his skin was still translucent, and he looked adorable. After they came back, Dugu Mabao had been in this position for 4 whole hours without moving. Chu Luiyue secretly admired his composure. At the same time, she thought that this man was very difficult to coax. However, looking at him like this, it was hard for anyone to really get angry. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat and she softened her voice. I promise that I'll clarify everything this time, okay? Don't you want to clarify these things in front of everyone? Dugu Mabao finally opened his eyes. His devilish purple eyes were as clear as jade. Really? Of course. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. I can't possibly watch my own fiancé become someone else's husband, right? Then what do you want to do? Dugu Mabao narrowed his eyes and sized her up. With her current inconspicuous appearance, she probably wouldn't be able to do anything even if she went. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but ruffle his hair, and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. Don't ask about this first. I have my own plans. When Chu Luiyue walked out, Lin Tianfeng and the others were already waiting in the courtyard. The girls had also dressed up meticulously, and they looked even more charming than before. Miss Dugu, why didn't you change your clothes? A girl asked curiously. Chu Luiyue chuckled. Why should I change my clothes? This is His Highness the Holy Sun's birthday banquet. The woman mumbled. Even if Dugu wasn't going to participate in the consort selection hall, but for such an occasion shouldn't she dress up grandly? But seeing that she didn't seem to care, they didn't say anything more. With her ordinary appearance, so what if she changed into a set of luxurious clothes? An ear-piercing voice of mockery rang out. Chu Luiyue and the others looked over. He saw a group of people walking towards him from the main hall. The leader was a burly middle-aged man. Beside him was a soldier in black armor. The totem of the Yuntian Tower was tattooed on the left side of his chest. He was dressed the same as Hu Yang, so it was obvious that he was of the same status as Hu Yang. Behind the two of them were a few old men and a few women. Without a doubt, these people were also wearing exquisite makeup. From her hair to her fingernails, she had put in a lot of effort. The woman who had spoken earlier was the one who had confronted Chu Luiyue at the beginning. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and sneered. It's better for some people to know their own limits. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. She hadn't said that she was going to participate in the consort selection hall, but the other party was so insistent. Clearly they were still holding a grudge against her for laughing at them earlier. They also thought that they were easy to bully from Grotto Heaven Cliff, so they were so bold. Not to mention whether she was good-looking or not, just her character alone was enough to annoy people. Before Chu Luiyue could retort, Hu Yang had already stepped forward and stared at the woman. Miss Han Zishu, please be careful with your words. Han Zishu looked at Hu Yang in surprise. What was going on? This Hu Yang actually dared to speak to her like that in front of so many people? He was clearly very humble earlier. The valley master of the cold mountain valley, Han Quan, also frowned but quickly returned to normal. Ah, Lord Hu Yang, please don't take offense. My daughter has always been outspoken. If she has offended you, please forgive her. Hu Yang said indifferently. Whether she is being outspoken or intentionally slandering you, everyone knows in their hearts. Valley Master Han, this is the Yuntian Tower after all, not the cold mountain valley. If your daughter still can't control her temper, then I'm afraid she won't gain the favor of His Highness Saint. You, Han Zishu's face turned pale with anger. How dare you curse me? Hu Yang snorted. Don't think too much. I'm just reminding you. It's up to you whether you want to take it or not. This time, even Han Quan's expression didn't look good. He was just casually teasing them, but who knew that Hu Yang would be so ungrateful? He dared to challenge them in public. Hu Yang, everyone here is a guest. What are you doing? The soldier standing next to Han Quan frowned and spoke in a commanding tone. Hurry up and apologize to Valley Master Han and Miss Han. Hu Yang snorted and ignored him. He looked at Lin Tianfeng and the others. Family Master Lin, Miss Dugu, this way please. Then the group really left, leaving the people in the cold mountain valley to wait. How did he become so arrogant all of a sudden? Han Quan couldn't help but ask angrily. Lord Qinting, he wasn't like this when he saw you before. Qinting also frowned. Although he and Hu Yang were at the same level, he had some connections with the higher-ups, so he was slightly better off than Hu Yang. Usually Hu Yang would be very polite when they met. What was wrong with him today? Why was he so stubborn? Humph, does he think that those from Heavenly Cave Cliff have a chance to be chosen by His Highness Saint? Han Zishu was so angry that she laughed. When Qinting heard this, he immediately said, how is that possible? Heavenly Cave Cliff is the weakest among all the tribes. His Highness Saint won't even look at them, let alone the others. Forget it. Since he's so arrogant now, we'll let him go first. In the future, we'll have a chance to get back at him. Han Quan said in a deep voice. Let's go quickly. We can't be late for His Highness Saint's birthday banquet. The banquet was held on the highest peak of the main island, Upstart Peak. Upstart Peak is the most sacred place of the Yuntian Tower. It's heavily guarded and there are strict rules for entry and exit. Other than the family master, His Highness Saint, and the various elders, anyone who wants to enter Upstart Peak has to get permission. Hu Yang explained as he led the group up the stairs. There are 2 halls on Upstart Peak. Do you see the one at the middle of the mountain? That's the Ethereal Hall, the place where the banquet will be held today. The Sacrificial God Hall occupies a huge area and has a complicated layout. When we enter later, you must follow me closely and don't wander around. The few of them followed his gaze and saw a majestic palace at the middle of the mountain. At this moment, they could vaguely see the square in front of the palace. It was very lively and crowded. What's at the top of the mountain? Chu Liwei suddenly looked at the palace at the top of the mountain and asked. The sun was setting in the west, and the brilliant light shrouded the black palace. It was so tall that it seemed unreachable. Chapter 1062. Hu Yang's face immediately turned solemn and respectful. That's the Sacrificial God Hall. His Highness the Holy Sun lived there. Compared to the Ethereal Hall, the Sacrificial God Hall is even more majestic. Other than His Holiness and his trusted aides, no one else is allowed to approach the Sacrificial God Hall. Chu Liwei narrowed his eyes. As expected. That was where Rongxiu lived. It was probably where he had been staying for the past few years as well. Actually, that used to be the seat of the clan head, but the clan head is currently in seclusion. His Holiness is in charge of the clan affairs, so Hu Yang didn't continue speaking, but everyone understood what he was trying to say. In truth, the current Holy Sun was already the most esteemed existence in the Yuntian Tower. Everyone stared at the Black Palace with grim expressions. Even from such a distance, they could still feel the overwhelming pressure emanating from it. Chu Liwei suddenly chuckled softly. I see. I'm sure Your Highness the Holy Sun must be very busy? Hu Yang's heart skipped a beat. He quickly scanned the surroundings to make sure that no one was around before heaving a sigh of relief. Then he looked at Chu Liwei with a conflicted expression. Miss Dugu, we're about to reach the Ethereal Hall, so I hope that you don't say such things in the future lest you get into trouble. Seeing the anxious look on Hu Yang's face, Chu Liwei heaved a sigh of relief. I understand. Then the group continued to move forward. Roughly 15 minutes later, Hu Yang finally came to a stop. They were currently standing on a mountain beside the Ascension Peak, and their location was almost at the same level as the Ethereal Hall. Hu Yang took out his white jade token and infused a surge of origin energy into it. The token glowed brightly. The head of the Lin clan has arrived. It did not take long for a silvery streak of light to fly over from the Ethereal Hall. It was as if a galaxy had descended from the heavens. It was a dazzling sight. Under the darkening sky, it was exceptionally beautiful. At the same time, a similar streak of light flew out from Hu Yang's white jade token and connected with the silver streak of light. Of course, compared to the one that had flown over from the ethereal hall, Hu Yang's was far inferior. It was obvious that the person in charge of receiving them was even stronger than Hu Yang. Hu Yang was the first to jump up and put away the token. Everyone please. Apart from this group of people, there were a few other similarly gorgeous streams of flowing light that transformed into bridges all around Upstart Peak. Obviously, they were also people from other tribes who had come to attend the banquet. The closer Chu Liwei got to the ethereal hall, the clearer he could feel the overwhelming pressure coming from the ethereal hall. She looked over. In front of the ethereal hall was a massive square paved with white jade. On one side of the square, near the cliff, a large black bell floated quietly. The sound of the bell just now seemed to have come from here. Around the square, soldiers in black armor were lined up neatly. Although there were many people coming and going, it was very orderly. Obviously, no matter what kind of background they came from, they all became well-behaved and followed the rules here. Moreover, at a glance, they were all dressed in luxurious brocade robes and were extremely solemn. The group finally landed on the ground. Welcome Clan Head Lin. As soon as their feet touched the ground, someone immediately rushed forward to welcome them. The person who had just arrived seemed to be in his 30s. Dressed in black armor, he had a thin face but a pair of spirited eyes. He looked very capable. His clothes were the same as Hu Yang's, but the aura he emanated was much stronger. Even Enchanting couldn't compare to him. It was no wonder why he was able to work here. Just as Chu Liwei was thinking about this, the other party suddenly turned to look at her. You must be Miss Dugu, right? Chu Liwei was taken aback for a moment before coming to a realization. From the looks of it, Yan Qing had already informed him about this matter. She nodded with a smile. That's right. A smile surfaced on the man's face. It's good that you're here. The seats have already been arranged for you. Please come in. After saying those words, he turned around and led the way. Lin Tianfeng and the others couldn't help but glance at Chu Liwei. However, Chu Liue's expression didn't change at all. She simply raised her eyebrows and followed him in. The main hall of the ethereal hall was resplendent and majestic. In the main hall there was a throne carved out of black jade, giving it a dignified air. Below it, there were several white jade tables arranged neatly in the middle, and the crowd was seated on both sides. The various tribes seemed to have arranged their seats in advance, and the names of their respective tribes were written on the side of each table. Behind each table there were a few seats left. Obviously, they were reserved for the people of the various clans who came together. At this moment, more than half of the seats in the main hall were already filled. The crowd was either chatting with one another or chatting with one another privately. It was a lively atmosphere, but there was a hint of restraint in it. From time to time, many people would look outside the hall. Clearly, they were waiting for the most important person of the night. As for the arrival of Lin Tianfeng and the others, it didn't cause too much of a commotion. Most people only glanced in their direction for a moment before retracting their gazes. Grotto Heaven Cliff? There was nothing to worry about. Thus, Chu Liwei and the rest were led by the soldier to their table in a very low-key manner. Clan Head Lin, this is the seat of the Grotto Heaven Cliff. Please take a seat. However, Lin Tianfeng didn't move. Instead, he looked at the soldier doubtfully. Here? Are you kidding me? This is the first row. One must know that those who were able to sit in the first row in such an occasion were the top tribes. Those like the Grotto Heaven Cliff would usually be seated in the last row, in an inconspicuous corner. But now, wasn't this seat a little too conspicuous? Even if it was on account of Lord Yan Qing, it didn't seem appropriate for them to do so. Even Hu Yang was taken aback and hurriedly asked, "What's the matter?" He quickly asked, "Are you sure it's here?" "Of course I'm sure." The soldier chuckled. "Everyone don't worry. We won't make a mistake in such matters." Lin Tianfeng subconsciously glanced at Chu Liwei. This position, it should be thanks to her fortune. Since they arranged it, let's just sit down. As Chu Liwei spoke, she walked over with a relaxed expression. Lin Tianfeng could only nod and lead the rest of the people to sit down rather nervously. As soon as they sat down, the hall quickly quieted down. Everyone looked over with different expressions in their eyes. Obviously, everyone could tell that something was wrong. Lin Tianfeng coughed and looked at Chu Liwei inquiringly. He lowered his voice. "Miss Dugu, what exactly are you and Lord Yan Qing? His Highness the Chosen One has arrived." Suddenly, a loud and clear voice transmitted over. Chu Liue's heart skipped a beat. She looked up. A man appeared outside the hall. He was dressed in a black brocade robe. He was tall and slender, and his bones were clear and elegant. The flowing light in the hall reflected on his face, making him the most beautiful man in the world. Before he stood still, he looked at the people in the hall as if he was looking for something. As if they were telepathic, he looked straight in Chu Liyue's direction. A ripple flashed across his deep and pure phoenix eyes. The corners of his eyes and the tips of his brows were like the spring wind melting snow, containing nostalgia and a smile. Chu Liyue's heart seemed to be hit by something soft. Her lips moved slightly. She almost wanted to call out to him directly. At this moment, a woman's voice sounded. "Your Highness, why are you walking so fast? I can't keep up." Chapter 1063. Immediately after, a slender woman walked over leisurely. It was already dark outside. She was dressed in a white dress with a blue jade belt around her slender waist. Her hair was like a cloud, and her hair was like a cloud. Especially her eyes, which were pure and moving, as gentle as water. Her red lips were curled up with a hint of playfulness. Her looks and charm could be considered stunning. Unfortunately, compared to the man in front of her, she seemed a little dull. The crowd first saw Rong Xiu's immortal-like appearance. When they looked at the others, they were not as stunned. However, compared to the many women in the hall, she was obviously better. When she saw the person, Chu Liyue narrowed her starry eyes slightly and smiled playfully. "So this is the rumored eldest young lady Jiang?" Rong Xiu did not seem to hear her. He strode into the hall with his long legs. Jiang Jiwan was stunned for a moment, then hurriedly followed him. Earlier on, she had been discussing with Rong Xiu about the academy. Later on, Yanqing returned and said something to Rong Xiu. After that, Rong Xiu was very absent-minded. If not for the fact that the academy was involved, he would have gotten up and left long ago. Until just now, when the banquet was about to start, he came straight here. He looked as if he was worried about being late. But this was the strangest thing. Rong Xiu was the noble saint. Even if he asked these people to wait here for a few hours, they would not dare to say anything. Moreover, he had always been a strategist. He would never do this. No matter what, he seemed to be in a hurry to do something. Jiang Ziyuan didn't have time to ask clearly before she hurried to follow him. Almost subconsciously, she followed Rong Xiu's line of sight and looked into the hall. Unfortunately, there were too many people in the hall. She could not see clearly who Rong Xiu was looking at. The crowd in the hall finally reacted and hurriedly got up to bow. "Greetings, Your Highness the Saint." Most of the tribe leaders and family heads had already seen Rong Xiu before. At this time they were still calm. However, for many of the women who came with them, it was their first time seeing the rumored saint. Many people blushed and stared blankly at the man who was striding over. Honorable. Arrogant. It was rumored that His Highness the Saint was extremely talented and powerful. He was decisive in killing and had the power to kill. Therefore, most people's first impression of him was reverence. However, when they saw him with their own eyes, they realized that His Highness the Saint was unparalleled in the world. Just his face alone was enough to make countless women's hearts flutter. Moreover, he held a high position and held power. How many women wouldn't be moved by such a man? Then, under the gazes of countless pairs of eyes, Rong Xiu suddenly took a step and walked toward a certain spot. Thus, everyone's gazes followed his gaze. "Yes. Why do I feel like His Highness the Saint is coming toward us?" A woman sitting next to Chu Liyue muttered with a red face and wide eyes. "How is that possible? What kind of person is His Highness the Saint? How could he wait? He really is coming here. He seems to be looking at someone. Could he be looking at us?" The remaining two women also became excited. Only Chu Liyue lowered his eyes and casually poured himself a glass of wine. Family head Lin. Rong Xiu stood in front of Lin Tianfeng and said calmly, "Why, Your Highness?" Lin Tianfeng was also shocked and hurriedly got up. Lin Tianfeng of Grotto Heaven Cliff greets His Highness the Saint. Lin Tianfeng was a god-level powerhouse and the head of a cliff, so his aura was not weak. But now, standing in front of Rong Xiu, he seemed much smaller and weaker, and his aura was much weaker. Lin Tianfeng did not even dare to look at the man in front of him. The noble aura he exuded after years of being in a high position was not something ordinary people could compare to. Rong Xiu smiled faintly with one hand behind his back. "Family head Lin, you must be tired from traveling all the way here, right?" The man's voice was deep and pleasant. However, there was a deathly silence in the hall. Almost everyone's face was instantly filled with shock. What did His Highness the Saint just say? He actually asked Lin Tianfeng if he was tired. Which of the tribes present did not come from afar? Which one of them was not tired? Why did he only ask Lin Tianfeng? Grotto Heaven Cliff had always been ranked last among the tribes. Usually they would not even have the chance to step forward on such occasions. What was going on today? Not only were they arranged to sit in the first row, but His Highness the Saint even came to ask? What kind of honor was this? Thank you for your concern, Your Highness. We are not tired. Lin Tianfeng was also stunned. He was stunned for a moment before he came back to his senses and hurriedly replied. It is already a great honor for us to be able to attend His Highness' birthday banquet. This was not an exaggeration. Among the tribes, there were not many who were qualified to come to Yuntian Tower. Lin Tianfeng had been here before, but he had always stood in a corner and was basically a forgotten, transparent existence. He had never been the center of attention like now. Even His Highness the Saint took the initiative to greet him. All of this happened too suddenly. Even though Lin Tianfeng was a person who had seen many storms, his heart was filled with nervousness and apprehension. Family head Lin, don't be nervous. I was just asking casually. I don't mean anything else. Rong Xiu's thin lips curved slightly, then his gaze fell on the people behind Lin Tianfeng. These people must have come with the Lin family's patriarch. Lin Tianfeng hurriedly turned his head and winked at them. The people who had not come back to their senses before stood up and bowed. Greetings, Your Highness the Saint. One of the girls, perhaps because she was too nervous, even moved the table in front of her. Chu Luiyue had just poured wine, but before he could pick it up, half the cup was spilled. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows. These girls are all from Grotto Heaven Cliff? Lin Tianfeng was shocked and immediately nodded, but then he hurriedly said, These three are, but Miss Dugu is not. Rong Xiu's eyes flashed with interest. Miss Dugu? Lin Tianfeng instinctively turned his head and saw that Chu Luiyue was the only one who was still sitting while the others were standing and bowing. She didn't even raise her head, but was pouring wine for herself. Lin Tianfeng's eyes twitched fiercely. What time is it now? She still has the leisure to drink. Does she know that this is His Highness the Saint? Miss Dugu doesn't seem to be happy to see I? Chu Luiyue then looked up and smiled slightly. Her pair of starry eyes were even brighter and more intoxicating than the wine that reflected the lights in her cup. She smiled. Your Highness the Saint, don't misunderstand. I just didn't see you just now. Chapter 1064. Gasps could be heard coming from the hall. Where did this woman come from? How dare she speak to the saint in such a manner? Just as everyone held their breaths and waited for the saint's thunderous response, he suddenly nodded and asked seriously, Do you see it now? His voice was normal. Not only was there no anger, but there was also a rare sense of patience. Everyone was speechless. Your Highness, wake up. What are you doing? Chu Luiyue gently swirled her wine glass, tilted her head and scrutinized him from head to toe. Then she slowly nodded. I see it. Yes. After being separated for so long they finally met. But she did not expect to meet him in such a place and with such an identity. The current Rongxiu was different from the previous Rongxiu. In the past he was always dressed in white, elegant and immortal-like. But now, he had changed into a black robe, and instantly had a frightening majesty and vigor. Chu Luiyue had only seen him like this once. It was the first day she heard him being addressed as the saint. It was also from then on that Chu Luiyue gradually realized that Rongxiu was definitely not what he appeared to be. She had expected Rongxiu's background to be extremely extraordinary, but she did not expect it to be so shocking. Your Highness is indeed handsome and charming, enough to attract the hearts of countless women in the world. Chu Luiyue said with a half-smile. Your Highness, you know each other? Jiang Jiwan finally could not help but ask behind him. Her eyes wandered back and forth between the two of them, and a subtle sense of discomfort welled up in her heart. Rongxiu's behavior was really not right. All these years he had not been close to women, and he did not even bother to talk to them. Whether it was the Yuntian Tower or the people of the various tribes, they had all tried countless times to persuade him to get married. But he had never agreed. This time, it was probably because he really couldn't delay it any longer, so he nodded and held this concubine selection ceremony. Although there was a huge commotion this time, Jiang Jiwan knew very well that Rongxiu definitely did not intend to choose 3 wives and 4 concubines. His attitude towards her was even more impatient than before. But now, he actually said such words to another woman? Most importantly, this woman's appearance was ordinary, and she didn't seem to be of high birth. What was His Highness thinking? Rongxiu's voice was calm, but he did not deny it. Of course. How could he not recognize his own wife, his own princess consort, and his own fiancée? In the past, I was fortunate enough to see the Holy Sun's face a few times. Chu Luiyue smiled. Rongxiu's brows twitched. These words? She clearly didn't want to have anything to do with him? Your Highness, today is your birthday banquet, and also the concubine selection ceremony. Don't waste your time here. Let's get started quickly. Chu Luiyue urged. Rongxiu's chest tightened. But in front of so many people, he couldn't say anything for the time being. Then, Miss Dugu, please do as you please. Just treat it as your own home. After that, he took a deep look at Chu Luiyue, then turned around and walked up to the stage. Hey, Your Highness. Jiang Jiwan looked at Rongxiu and then at Chu Luiyue. What was going on? Ziyuan, come back quickly. At this moment, Jiang Hetian suddenly opened his mouth and waved at Jiang Jiwan. It was really embarrassing for her to stand there alone in front of so many people. Moreover, anyone with eyes could see that Rongxiu treated her very coldly. After entering, he didn't even look at her. Jiang Hetian's heart ached for his daughter, so he hurriedly called her back. Jiang Jiwan pursed her lips, then obediently walked over to him and sat behind him. That was the first seat in the first row from the left. It was obvious that the Tomb of Immortal Water had a high status. After Rongxiu left, Lin Tianfeng finally let out the breath he had been holding in. He hurriedly turned to look at Chu Luiyue, his brows furrowed. His gaze was complicated, as if he had a lot to say but didn't know where to start. Miss Dugu, you know His Highness the Son of God. Why didn't you say so before? Lin Tianfeng finally spat out a sentence. Chu Luiyue blinked. You didn't ask. Lin Tianfeng? He wouldn't ask such a question unless his brain was fried, right? Who would have thought that an ordinary girl from another world would know the high and mighty Son of God? Who could? No wonder. Lin Zhifei, who was standing aside, suddenly understood something. No wonder Yan Qing treated her like that. He had previously felt that Yan Qing's politeness to her, even a hint of obedience, was abnormal. Now he finally understood. The person she knew was the saint. Lin Zhifei suddenly remembered that when she was at the Lin residence, she had once asked if His Highness the Son of God was called Rongxiu. At that time, Lin Tianfeng had even told her not to call the Son of God by his name. At that time, he had thought that she had called out the Son of God's name because she had just arrived and was reckless and ignorant. Now that he thought about it, it was because she had placed the Son of God on the same level from the beginning. That was why her tone was so calm and natural. Oh my God. Miss Dugu, you actually know His Highness the Son of God. No wonder he came over to talk to us just now. The girls beside her exclaimed in admiration, their faces full of envy. Chu Luiyue smiled faintly and said, Yes, I didn't know his identity before, so I didn't say anything. I see. The girls didn't doubt her and nodded repeatedly. I knew it was strange that we could sit in the first row. His Highness the Son of God must have known that you were coming and specially arranged it. Yes. In that case you must be very familiar with him, right? Then do you know what kind of girl His Highness the Son of God likes? Chu Luiyue picked up the wine and downed it in one gulp. The burning sensation instantly flowed into her lungs from between her lips and teeth. Almost half of her body was burning up. She rested her chin on one hand and tapped her chin with her slender and fair fingers. The girl he likes. Won't we know when the consort selection ceremony starts? Lin Tianfeng listened to her calm and collected tone, feeling both fortunate and troubled at the same time. Fortunately, they had been treating Dugu well during this period and didn't offend her. What troubled him was that she didn't seem to realize how shocking it was to be friends with His Highness the Son of God. What did it mean? Most importantly, she didn't seem to be worried about offending the Son of God at all. Listen to what she said just now. He wouldn't dare to say it even if he had 10 guts. But she said it. She didn't intend to save any face for His Highness the Son of God. Left with no choice, Lin Tianfeng could only lower his voice. Miss Dugu, we can't thank you enough for basking in your glory today. Please be careful in the future. Don't say anything like that again, lest you offend His Highness the Son of God. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. Who offended who now? Chapter 1065. Your Highness, are you all right? After Rongxiu walked over, Yuemo couldn't help but ask in a low voice. Was too scary. The scene just now was too scary. Miss Lu Yu's actions were too ruthless. She didn't give His Highness any leeway in front of so many people. However, His Highness couldn't bear to do anything to her and could only let her do whatever she wanted. On the other side, Yan Qing was expressionless. Hearing this, he couldn't help but snort in his heart. Who could he blame for his own sins? He had already advised His Highness to say it, but he refused. Now look, she came straight to his door. And then? He said he would pick her up personally, but he didn't go in the end. It would be strange if that person wasn't angry. Rong Xiu's expression was normal. Just follow the procedure. Umo hurriedly agreed. Yes. After saying that, seeing that His Highness didn't seem to have any other plans, Umo anxiously nudged Yanqing with his elbow. Hey, didn't His Highness ask you to pick up Miss Luyu? Why did she come with the Lin family in the end? Look at how angry that person is now. If you had done it well, His Highness wouldn't have fallen to such a state now? Yanqing sneered. What was the use of him going? He had already knelt on one knee and begged, but that person was still indifferent. In the end, wasn't it because His Highness was in the wrong first? So what if he was cannon fodder? Could he appease that person by himself? Even His Highness couldn't do it, let alone him. In the end, His Highness should be the one suffering this. Seeing that His Highness was calm as usual and Yanqing was indifferent, Umo scratched his head and felt a headache coming on. After thinking for a while, he couldn't think of anything and could only sigh in his heart. Sigh. Forget it. Who cares so much? Since His Highness wasn't in a hurry, he must have a way to deal with it, right? Then Umo put these thoughts aside and began to busy himself with the banquet. Rong Xiu came earlier than expected. After he came in, other tribes arrived one after another. Because of his existence, the atmosphere in the hall was clearly more solemn than before. Even though he had already told them to be casual, they didn't dare to be casual. Especially the young ladies, all of them competed in beauty and were dignified and generous. Every single word and action of theirs was extremely well behaved, as if they were afraid of making a mistake and drawing the annoyance of the person above them. Behind them, Cold Mountain Valley and the others also arrived. After entering, the group of people first saw Rong Xiu sitting at the head of the table. Only then did they realize that they were late and hurriedly knelt down to pay their respects. Rong Xiu didn't mind and let them sit down. However, the faces of Han Quan and the others were still pale. They all knew very well that with such a big mistake, they probably didn't have any more chances. Only Han Zishu and a few others did not react for a while. They were only focused on Rong Xiu, who was sitting at the head of the table. He had the grace of a dragon and the grace of a phoenix, a clear and evildoer. It was normal for such a person to be tempted. It was only when Rong Xiu looked over with a tinge of coldness in his eyes that the overwhelming suppression suddenly attacked. Only then did the few of them finally wake up. If you don't want your eyes, just say so, Rong Xiu said coldly. Only then did Han Zishu and the others hurriedly lower their heads and beg for mercy. This scene made everyone in the hall feel very complicated. Duguyu in front said that she didn't see him, but he insisted on letting her see. Now that the few women from Cold Mountain Valley were staring at him in a daze, he actually wanted to dig out their eyeballs. Actually, it wasn't that His Highness Saint had never done such a thing before. However, with the previous incident as a foil, this incident was too strange. Why was there such a huge difference between people? After much persuasion, the group from Cold Mountain Valley finally begged for forgiveness and went to the corner behind the crowd helplessly. At this moment, they saw that Lin Tianfeng and the others were actually sitting in the first row. Han Zishu was shocked. Just as she was about to speak, Han Quan held her back. Now that they couldn't even take care of themselves, how could they care about others? Moreover, Han Zishu and the others didn't know, but Han Quan and Enchanting knew the pros and cons. The fact that Lin Tianfeng and the others could sit here peacefully already explained too many things. Even if they wanted to find trouble with them, they had to ask about the situation first. Thus, the group of people went down sullenly just like that. Humph, let's see how arrogant they can be this time. Miss Dugu, it's all thanks to you this time. Otherwise, we would have been bullied by them again. The few women from Grotto Heaven Cliff felt relieved. Now that everyone knows that you and His Highness Saint know each other, no one will dare to provoke you in the future. Chu Luiyue smiled and glanced at Lu Ruhai, who had been silent all this while. I hope so. After everyone arrived, the banquet officially began. First, the people from each tribe presented their congratulatory gifts to wish His Highness Saint a happy birthday. Piles of flowery words were poured out as if they were free. Chu Luiyue was drowsy listening to them. Rong Xiu glanced at her and saw her lazy and sleepy look. He couldn't help but laugh and interrupt Umo, who was reading the list of gifts. All right. I'll look at these later. Today is not only Ai's birthday, but also the consort selection ceremony. Ai's time to choose a consort, so let's get started. Everyone was taken aback and immediately became excited. This was the highlight of tonight's event. Rong Xiu waved his wrist and handed a booklet to Yan Qing. First, check the name list for the consort selection ceremony. Yes. Yan Qing opened it respectfully and then his face froze. He quickly looked up at Rong Xiu. Rong Xiu looked calm. Read it. Yan Qing swallowed his saliva with difficulty. The name list for the consort selection ceremony is as follows: Grotto Heaven Cliff, Lin Miao or Lin Shuang Su Xiaoyan, Dudugiyu. Digression, 6 p.m. Chapter 1066. Dugiyu. Lin Tianfeng and the others were shocked when they heard this name. How could her name be on the list? A young lady beside Chu Liwei lost her balance and directly dropped the wine cup in her hands onto the floor. Bang! The crisp sound of a jade cup shattering rang out, immediately drawing everyone's gazes over. The hall fell silent. Rong Xiu looked over and raised his eyebrows. Patriarch Lin, what's wrong? Lin Tianfeng hurriedly stood up. Your Highness, this Miss Dugu isn't on the Heavenly Cave Cliffs list. This, oh? Rong Xiu seemed surprised. He raised his voice and said to Yan Qing, let me have a look. Yan Qing hurriedly presented the booklet with both hands. Rong Xiu took it and scrutinized it. He then looked up and lightly said, I'm sorry. He raised his head and said, Duguyu's name is clearly written on it. If Patriarch Lin doesn't believe me, you can take a look for yourself. Lin Tianfeng choked. How could he not believe His Highness the Holy Sun's words? But this can't be right. The list had been delivered to Rong Xiu before Duguyu went to Heavenly Cave Cliff. Moreover, he knew that Duguyu had brought her child to find her husband. How could he dare to add her name to the list? There must be a mistake. Lin Tianfeng swallowed with difficulty. His face was tense and his body was tense. Even though he had seen his fair share of storms, he was still stunned by this scene. The others present didn't know Duguyu's background, but he did. If someone found out, wouldn't it be, Patriarch Lin, are you saying that the Yuntian Tower made a mistake with this booklet? Rong Xiu leaned back in his chair and asked lazily. Although he spoke casually, how could Lin Tianfeng admit to this? It wasn't like he was tired of living. Why would he publicly criticize the people of Yuntian Tower for their incompetence? I didn't mean that. Lin Tianfeng's voice was much weaker. Rong Xiu smiled and threw the booklet back to Yan Qing. Forget it. This matter can't be explained in a short time. Let's leave it at that for now. It won't be too late to investigate after the matter is over. Everyone? This is your concubine selection list, how can you say it so easily? But since Rong Xiu had already spoken, the others naturally couldn't say anything. What's more, there were many people participating in the consort selection ceremony, so it didn't matter if she was there or not. Such a woman with no background was nothing to worry about. Yan Qing held the booklet and felt her hands burning. He lowered his eyes again and looked at the words Duguyu that had clearly just been added. His heart was in turmoil. No wonder His Highness wasn't anxious at all. He was waiting here. Rong Xiu's slender and fair fingers tapped on the table. Continue. Yan Qing took a deep breath and was about to continue reading. Han, wait. Yan Qing was abruptly interrupted as soon as he opened his mouth. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. The speaker was none other than Jiang Jiwan, who had followed Rong Xiu in just now. She looked at Rong Xiu, who was sitting at the head of the table, and frowned slightly. Her face was obviously disapproving. Your Highness, this seems inappropriate. Everyone became quieter. Ziyuan. Jiang Hetian, who was next to her, frowned and called out to her in warning. Jiang Jiwan ignored him. She pursed her lips and continued. Just now, Patriarch Lin has said that Miss Dugu is not a member of Dongtian Cliff. Logically speaking, she is not qualified to be on the list. Your Highness, it's a little inappropriate for you to ignore it, isn't it? Everyone looked at each other. Jiang Jiwan's words were not without reason. Those who could come here were the most outstanding women of their respective tribes. It was indeed strange for Duguyu to suddenly appear on the list and become one of the candidates. Rong Xiu glanced at her indifferently. Today, not all of the women here are from the main families of the tribes. According to what you said, shouldn't they be removed from the list as well? Jiang Jiwan was speechless and bit her lips. Your Highness, you know I didn't mean that. What does eldest Miss Jiang mean? Only eldest Miss Jiang knows. How would I know? Rong Xiu seemed to smile, but there was no trace of a smile in his eyes. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that he was alienating her from the inside out. Jiang Jiwan was stunned, and then a trace of embarrassment appeared in her eyes. After seeing Rong Xiu today, she was full of joy, but then she realized that he didn't seem to want to pay attention to her. She didn't take it too seriously because he had always been so cold. But now, in front of so many people, he didn't give her any face at all. Jiang Jiwon felt very wronged. Just as she was about to say something, Jiang Hetien spoke up. "Your Highness, please forgive me for offending you." He chuckled. "Your Highness, you know that this girl was spoiled by the chief when she was young, so she was a little rude. Please forgive me, Your Highness, I will teach her well when we go back." At the mention of the chief, Rong Xiu's eyes darkened and his thin lips curled up. "Of course not. It's a pity that the chief is now in seclusion. Otherwise he would be very happy to see Miss Jiang." The smile on Jiang Hetien's face froze. For some reason, the chief had been in seclusion since a few years ago, and he still hadn't come out after so long. During this time, Rong Xiu had completely taken control of the Yintian Tower. For the past few years he had been avoiding Rong Xiu's limelight, but he didn't expect him to be more domineering than expected. Jiang Hetien smiled awkwardly and didn't say anything else. "Father, why don't you let me continue?" Jiang Jiwon couldn't help but ask. Jiang Hetien frowned. "What else do you want to say? Don't you understand what His Highness the Chosen Saint means? But why? That Duguyu is clearly not qualified, and even the chief of the Lin family said that he didn't mention her name. Why does Your Highness have to go through so much trouble when it can be solved with just one sentence?" Jiang Hetien was getting impatient. "Why are you always so hung up on this problem? It's just Duguyu, isn't it? Even if she joined in, would it affect the final result in any way? Other things aside, just her appearance and figure alone make her no match at all. Is it worth it to quarrel with His Highness over such an insignificant person?" Jiang Jiwon was speechless for a moment. "As long as you perform well later, you'll be able to get the position of princess consort. There's no one more suitable than you to ascend to this position," Jiang Hetien advised in a sincere and heartfelt manner. Jiang Jiwon could only nod. But for some reason, when she thought of the conversation between His Highness and that woman, she felt a little uneasy. Yanqing continued. "Han, wait." Another voice sounded. Everyone looked over and saw that it was Duguyu who spoke this time. The corners of her lips curled slightly and she said with a smile. "I think eldest young Miss Jiang is right. Your Highness the Chosen Saint, please cross out my name." Chapter 1067. As soon as he finished speaking, the hall fell into a deathly silence. Yanqing's heart skipped a beat, and he turned to look at his master. On the throne, Rong Xiu's expression froze for a moment. But that momentary stiffness quickly dissipated. But his eyes gradually became as cold and lonely as a cold lake, and his whole body emitted a shocking chill. He smiled slightly and said softly, "What did you say?" "What did you say? Say it again." The atmosphere became strange. Many people inexplicably felt a dangerous and cold aura. The space seemed to freeze inch by inch. Chu Yuyue's smile did not change. "Just now, Patriarch Lin has already made it very clear that my name is not in the list of candidates. As for why my name appeared on the list, it's actually not important. Your Highness can just cross my name off the list. It's convenient for everyone, isn't it? This kind of excitement doesn't seem very suitable for me to participate. Your Highness, don't you think so?" As she spoke, she turned to look at Yanqing. "Such a small matter, Your Highness, you don't have to do it yourself. Yanqing can do it for you. Lady Yanqing, please?" Yanqing's hand that was holding the booklet trembled slightly. He was wrong. He should not have invited her on behalf of His Highness from the beginning. Not to mention that he was rejected, it was difficult for him to withdraw now. Why was his life so miserable? He had no choice but to say, "I'm of a lowly status and have no right to do so." Rong Xiu's eyes were deep. He looked at Chu Liyue as if he wanted to tear him apart and eat him. "Are you sure?" Yanqing looked at Chu Liyue pleadingly. "Please? Of course I'm sure." Chu Liyue's smile deepened. "After all, I already have a fiancé." Everyone was in an uproar. So Duguyu already had a fiancé? Did His Highness know about it? From the looks of it, he probably didn't know, right? Otherwise, he wouldn't have agreed to leave her name on the booklet. But to reject the saint in front of him was really a little embarrassing. Lin Tianfeng and the others also looked at Chu Liyue in shock. "Fiancé? Not my husband?" But Debeo, just as everyone was whispering, Rong Xiu suddenly chuckled and opened his mouth. "So what?" In an instant, almost all the sounds disappeared. Countless pairs of eyes stared at Rong Xiu in astonishment. "Then what about it? What did that mean?" Jiang Jiwan's heart suddenly skipped a beat, and the feeling of uneasiness grew stronger. At this time, the others present also felt that something was wrong and kept quiet. The air was so tense that it was almost suffocating. Rong Xiu didn't seem to notice the crowd that was shocked by his words. He leaned back lazily with a faint smile on his face. As long as you let him stand out and oppose this matter, I will let it go. Treacherous. Chu Luiyue secretly gritted his teeth. He knew that this man was black-hearted, but he did not expect that he would not stop until he had dug his own grave. How could he say something like that? He was really shameless. Chu Luiyue almost couldn't hold it in and wanted to curse out loud. Even Dugu Mabao, who had been quiet all this time, could not help but lift his eyelids when he heard this. A dark light flashed in his demonic purple eyes. This kid was still the same as before. No, he had become even more powerful. To achieve his goal, he would do anything. Now, in front of so many people, he did not care about his face at all. Lin Tianfeng felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. He did not expect that things would develop to this point. If he still could not see through His Highness's intentions, he would have wasted all these years. Wasn't it obvious that he wanted Du Guiyu to participate in the consort selection? He did not need to ask to know how that name appeared on the list. But the key was that Du Guiyu had already said that she had a fiancé, and His Highness still said that, no matter how high her fiancé's status was, could it be higher than His Highness? Not to mention whether that man was here now, even if he was, would he dare to stand out when His Highness said so? At this point, there seemed to be no solution to the matter. Lin Tianfeng could not help but look at Chu Luiyue, and then at Dugu Mabao, who had been quietly standing beside her, and sighed. This child was only 3 or 4 years old. How innocent! He hesitated for a moment and was about to speak when Lin Qifei pulled him back. Father, please calm down. Lin Tianfeng was a little hesitant. But, Her Highness is really... she is alone. If we don't help her then, Lin Qifei shook his head lightly. Let's wait and see. If you stand out now, you won't be of much help. Lin Tianfeng knew that he was telling the truth. Grotto Heaven Cliff did not have a high status, and it was all because of Du Guiyu that they were able to receive such treatment. If His Highness wanted to do something, even the Jiang clan in the Immortal Water Tomb could not stop him, let alone them. In the end, Lin Tianfeng could only nod his head. No matter what, she saved your life. If anything happens, we can't just sit by and do nothing. Lin Qifei nodded lightly. There seemed to be an undercurrent in his light eyes. He looked at Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue without batting an eyelid, then lowered his eyes. The relationship between these two. What's so good about that Du Guiyu? His Highness has taken a liking to her? In a secluded corner of the main hall, the people in Cold Mountain Valley were stunned by the scene before them. Han Zishu's eyes widened in disbelief. With that kind of appearance, that kind of background, and most importantly, she already has a fiancé. How could she win His Highness's favor? What is His Highness thinking? Sure. Han Quan still had a bit of rationality left and hurriedly stopped her. Don't criticize His Highness. Han Zishu shrank back, but her face was still filled with dissatisfaction. I'm just curious. What the hell is going on? I don't know how that bitch bewitched His Highness. Before they could finish their sentence, a young woman in front suddenly turned around. Her makeup was exquisite, and her looks were top-notch. Clearly, she was also here to participate in the consort selection. But at this moment, there was a hint of mockery on her face. She looked at Han Zishu and the others as if she was looking at fools. Don't say things like that. Be careful not to be overheard by others. That Miss Dugu was acquainted with His Highness in the past. If you're not afraid of getting into trouble, go ahead and continue. With that, she turned around with a cold smile. Not only were they late, but they were also brainless. These people in Cold Mountain Valley were really tired of living. Han Zishu and the others were confused. That Du Guiyu knew His Highness the Saint? How could it be? In this atmosphere that was almost suffocating, Chu Luiyue was the first to recover from her shock. She narrowed her eyes and suddenly smiled. Your Highness, what if I insist on saying no? Digression, it felt good to cheat his wife. It felt good to cheat her all the time. Chapter 1068. Little you, why is your temper still so stubborn? At this moment, a low and old voice suddenly came from outside. Everyone looked toward the door. An elder suddenly came in. There wasn't the slightest bit of origin power fluctuations on his body, but the inexplicable aura around him caused people to secretly feel reverence. This was definitely a top-notch expert. Chu Luiyue was slightly stunned. The reason for that was because she knew that old man. 36 Respected Elder Ming, why are you here? Rong Xiu was about to stand up and welcome him personally when 36 Respected Elder Ming hurriedly waved his hand. His Highness the Holy Sun's birthday banquet, and it's also a concubine selection ceremony. We naturally have to come and join in the fun. At this moment, after hearing the identity of the person who came, everyone also stood up and bowed. Greetings to 36 Respected Elder Ming. Many people were secretly shocked. This was an expert among the experts of the Yuntian Tower. Even among the dozens of respected elders, he was definitely the one with the highest strength and status. Usually, 36 Respected Elder Ming was mostly invisible and never got involved in these matters. Who knew what had happened today for him to suddenly come? 36 Respected Elder Ming laughed loudly. I just came out of seclusion and heard about this. Naturally, I rushed over without stopping. As he spoke, his gaze fell on Ming Yao, who was at the side. Ming Yao quivered and hurriedly bowed in greeting. Respected Elder, why did you come out of seclusion today? No one actually came to inform us in advance. Apologies for not coming out to welcome you. I hope, after I came out of seclusion, I immediately rushed over when I heard the news. Naturally, no one informed us. 36 Respected Elder Ming snorted. If I came a little later, wouldn't I have missed this meticulously planned and lively banquet today? Ming Yao was drenched in cold sweat and didn't know what to say for a moment. It seemed that 36 Respected Elder Ming already knew everything. He was the one who did his best to facilitate the concubine selection. Previously, 36 Respected Elder Ming had repeatedly warned him not to have any ideas about this. However, he still secretly did it when 36 Respected Elder Ming was in seclusion. He had originally thought that by the time this person came out of seclusion, everything would have been settled. At that time, even if 36 Respected Elder Ming was dissatisfied, what was done could not be undone, and he would not be able to say much. I didn't expect him to appear so quickly. This time he was caught red-handed. Just when Ming Yao thought that 36 Respected Elder Ming might criticize him severely in front of everyone, he saw that 36 Respected Elder Ming did not say anything more to him. Instead, he turned around and walked to the other side. Under everyone's gaze, he walked to Lin Tianfeng's table. This was actually the first time Lin Tianfeng had seen this legendary existence. However, he was very clear that 36 Revered Elder Ming had also come to find Duguyu. As expected, 36 Respected Elder Ming's gaze landed on Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly, but soon relaxed as a look of understanding flashed across his eyes. Honorable Elder 36 Ming? Ming 36 was stared at by her clear, dark eyes and immediately felt guilty. He clenched his fist and coughed. Cough, lass, His Highness the Holy Sun has spoken words of gold. How can you go back on your words in front of everyone? Just treat it as if you're participating for fun. Anyway, it won't affect anything, right? Everyone was confused. Participating for fun? 36 Respected Elder Ming, is it really appropriate for you to say that? So many people present have a cautious and expectant attitude towards this matter. What do you mean by letting Duguyu participate for fun? Looking at 36 Respected Elder Ming's expression, Chu Luiyue suddenly had a thought. She narrowed her eyes and glanced at Rong Xiu, who was sitting at the head of the table, without batting an eyelid. Rong Xiu nodded slightly. Chu Luiyue's eyes flickered. All right. With 36 Respected Elder Ming's interference and Chu Luiyue's help, this matter finally proceeded smoothly. The atmosphere was a little strange. Many people started whispering to each other. So 36 Respected Elder Ming actually knows that Duguyu? What exactly is her background? I'm not sure. But since she came with those people from Cave Heaven Cliff's Lin family, logically speaking, she shouldn't be of noble birth, right? That's true. But His Highness the Holy Sun and 36 Respected Elder Ming's attitude towards her seems to be very unusual. This girl looks ordinary. I really don't know what His Highness sees in her. So what? Today all the noble ladies of the various clans are here. How can there be a place for her to stand? But then again, why is only 36 Respected Elder Ming here for such an important occasion? Where are the other respected elders? Perhaps the other respected elders have their own matters to deal with or are cultivating. Didn't you see that 36 Respected Elder Ming also came out of seclusion and hurried over? Moreover, not all the respected elders of Yuntian Tower are convinced by His Highness the Holy Sun. Shoo. We can't say such things. Everyone was discussing. Jiang Jiwan slowly pinched the corner of her clothes. Jiang Hetian turned back to look at her and saw her aggrieved eyes. He sighed and comforted her. All right, Ziyuan. Daddy knows that you are aggrieved, but His Highness the Holy Sun has always been like this. No one can stop him from doing what he wants to do. Don't worry. According to Duguyu's status, even if she is chosen, she will at most have the fate of a concubine. She doesn't even have the qualifications to be a concubine, let alone a princess consort. You don't have to worry, I'm not worried about this. Jiang Ziyuan bit her lips and her voice was choked with sobs. I'm just sad. He must be interested in this girl. Otherwise he wouldn't have done this. She had known him for so long, but he had never done anything especially for her. How could she not be sad when compared to him? What made it even harder for her to accept was that Duguyu didn't seem to want to accept her kindness even though she was being so generous. Rong Xiu was the most handsome man in the world. How could her so-called fiancé compare to him? Jiang Hetian patted her hand. As long as the person sitting next to him is you, he will be yours for the rest of his life. As for the rest, why should you care? These words finally made Jiang Jiwan snap out of her daze. She held back the tears in her eyes, nodded her head forcefully and said stubbornly, Of course I won't let others take away everything that belongs to me. Jiang Hetian heaved a sigh of relief and slowly smiled. This is the young mistress of the Jiang clan in the immortal water tomb. You are my precious daughter. Jiang Jiwan pursed her lips and looked up slightly at Chu Luiyue. Thinking about everything that had happened just now, she felt even more uncomfortable. How could such a girl stay by his side? It would be best to find a way to chase her out from the beginning. Umo quickly brought a chair over and invited 36 respected elder Ming to sit to the left of Rong Xiu. As Chu Luiyue listened to the crowd's discussion, she glanced over. Rong Xiu seemed to have specially prepared seats for the respected elders. Chapter 1069. Miss Dugu, it turns out that you even know 36 respected elder Ming? Lin Tianfeng's current feelings could no longer be described as shock. First it was Lord Yanqing, then His Highness the Holy Sun, and now even the reclusive 36 respected elder Ming was familiar with her. Was she really just an ordinary outsider? He wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. Chu Luiyue regained her senses and nodded nonchalantly. We're not very familiar with each other, we've met a few times. Lin Tianfeng's eyes were filled with resentment. How could she have such an attitude after meeting him a few times? It was rumored that 36 respected elder Ming didn't even care about the Ming clan's matters. If it was really nothing, why would he say such things to her? Lin Tianfeng felt that he couldn't understand the woman in front of him anymore. She looked ordinary, but she was able to cure Ji Fei's illness as an 8th-grade celestial physician. She seemed to have no background, but she had dealings with the most honorable person in Yuntian Tower. She seemed to be hiding many secrets that couldn't be seen through. Lin Qifei looked at her meaningfully, then his gaze swept past Dugu Mabao. Perhaps his guess was true? Then Yanqing was finally able to continue reading from the booklet. Fortunately, there were no more accidents after that. When he finished reading, he closed the booklet and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Rong Xiu leaned against the chair, languid and calm, with a noble aura that came from his bones. I like to play chess and I also like women who play chess well. So the first round is chess. As he spoke, he waved his sleeves and countless silver lights flew out. The bright lights intertwined in mid-air, and quickly formed a huge chessboard in the center of the hall. Whoever can play with eye to the end will be the winner of this round. The hall was silent for a moment and then there were whispers. Who would have thought that His Highness the Holy Sun's first round of choosing a consort would be a game of chess? However, many people knew that His Highness the Holy Sun liked to play chess. There didn't seem to be anything wrong with doing this. Jiang Hetian glanced at Jiang Jiwan with a smile. Don't you usually like and are good at this? From this, it can be seen that His Highness still cares about you. Jiang Jiwan's cheeks were dyed with a touch of crimson, and she was a little shy. Father, don't tease me. Did Father say something wrong? You've been learning chess from the patriarch since you were 3 years old, and your skills are exquisite. There are very few people in the world who can defeat you. Who else but you can claim first place? Jiang Jiwan's face turned even redder. Looking at the shining chessboard, her eyes were filled with excitement and joy. It seemed that he did remember. Yanqing asked. Who wants to be the first to come up and give it a try? Everyone immediately quieted down. Soon a voice came from the crowd. Yunwu Mountain's Pei Pei is willing to give it a try. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. It was a woman in a crimson outfit. She was tall and slender. She had a fair oval face and delicate facial features. Among the many women who dressed up meticulously, she wasn't the top beauty. However, the valiant and heroic spirit between her eyebrows added a different kind of elegance to her. She had a wide saber at her waist as if she was ready to draw it and fight at any time. After saying that, she walked straight to the center of the hall and stood on the huge chessboard. The eldest miss of Yunwu Mountain. I heard that she has a fierce personality and does things in a hurry. Seeing her today, it's true. She dares to be the first to go up. She's really brave. I wonder how many steps she can take. I heard that His Highness the Holy Sun's chess skills are very good. No matter how many steps she can take, she can still show her face in front of His Highness. At least it's better than being unknown, right? No matter how the people around her discussed, Pei Pei acted as if she didn't hear them. She raised her chin and looked at Rongxiu. Rongxiu said, "Miss Pei, please go first." "Thank you, Your Highness." Pei Pei responded with a grunt, and then started very nimbly. Dark red force gathered in her palm. Then, with a flick of her wrist, she hit the chessboard with the force. Buzz. A slight fluctuation was felt. A dark red round chess piece instantly appeared on the chessboard. "Your Highness, please." However, just as Pei Pei finished speaking, a golden chess piece quickly appeared on the chessboard. Rongxiu said indifferently, "This chessboard contains all the chess games that I have seen and played. Therefore, it can automatically place a piece." Pei Pei was stunned. "In other words, if I can't play a new game, Your Highness won't make a move personally?" Rongxiu nodded. Regretful sighs could be heard in the hall. Some of the women who were ready to make a move immediately withered. Didn't this mean that if they couldn't play to the same level as His Highness, they wouldn't even have a chance to fight him? If they weren't strong enough, there was no point in going up. It would be very embarrassing. A hint of astonishment flashed across Pei Pei's face, but she quickly recovered. She didn't say anything and continued. However, every time she placed a piece, the chessboard would quickly react and give her a counter move. More importantly, with every move, the pressure on the chessboard would become heavier. Pei Pei gradually felt the pressure, and the speed at which she played slowed down. Finally, after about half an hour, Pei Pei was no longer able to withstand the terrifying pressure. No matter how she tried, the origin power she unleashed would dissipate an inch or so away from the chessboard. She couldn't place a piece at all. At this moment, everyone could see that this chessboard was much stronger and more complicated than they had expected. After another failed attempt, Pei Pei simply chose to give up. "I admit defeat." UMO was in charge of recording. Yunwu Mountain's Pei Pei 11 moves. Everyone had different expressions. In fact, Pei Pei could already be considered as one of the most outstanding women among the many women. Although Yunwu Mountain couldn't be compared to the Immortal Water Mausoleum, it was still one of the top clans in terms of strength and resources. As for Pei Pei, she was a genius carefully nurtured by Yunwu Mountain. At the age of 21, she had already broken through to the peak of the 9th level. Even she could only play 11 moves on the chessboard, let alone others. Pei Pei didn't seem to care. After bowing to Rongxiu, she simply went down. "Next." Yan Qing shouted in a deep voice. Everyone looked at each other and hesitated for a moment. However, the position of consort was too tempting. After some hesitation, many women still chose to give it a try. However, most of them couldn't even compare to Pei Pei. Some couldn't even place a piece on the chessboard. Thus, although many people tried, it didn't take long. Soon everyone gradually calmed down. At this time, those who dared to go up had all done so. Only 2 women were more outstanding than Pei Pei, but they couldn't even make 20 moves. In the silence, many people looked at Jiang Jiwan. Chapter 1070. Jiang Jiwan of the Tomb of Immortal Water was a famous genius in the Divine Ruins world. Jiang Jiwan stood up, walked toward the huge chessboard and stood still. She was beautiful to begin with, and today she had dressed up meticulously. Naturally, she looked even more alluring. Moreover, she had only put on light makeup, and her outfit was simple and elegant. Compared to the other women who had put on makeup, she looked even more elegant and refined. Under the faint glow of the chessboard, she stood tall, graceful, and gentle. She had already surpassed the other women before her. She glanced at the chessboard, raised her hand and placed a blue chess piece. Like before, the chessboard reacted quickly, and a golden chess piece appeared in another position. Jiang Jiwan didn't hesitate at all, and continued to place her chess piece. Time passed slowly. Jiang Jiwan had already made 20 moves, becoming the person who had made the most moves so far, but she still didn't stop. In fact, she didn't even slow down the speed of her chess game. Compared to the others before her, she was clearly much more relaxed. The hall gradually quieted down and everyone had different expressions. Only a few people were discussing and exclaiming in low voices. As expected of the young miss of the Tomb of Immortal Water. Her strength is indeed not something that we can compare to. It's been rumored that she's going to be the princess consort. Now who else could it be? She's only 22 this year, right? I heard that she's already become a demigod. Hiss. No wonder she's so powerful. This kind of appearance, this kind of background really can't be compared. I heard that when she was young, she spent most of her time in the Yuntian Tower, and the Yuntian Tower's patriarch has always doted on her. Her chess skills were also learned from him. Does this mean that His Highness the Holy Sun set up this test for her? Jiang Jiwon was focused on her chess game, but she wasn't weak, and her 5 senses were sharp, so she could hear most of what was being said. A sweet feeling welled up in her heart. She placed another chess piece and at the same time looked at Rong Xiu, who was sitting at the head of the table, and smiled. Your Highness, please take this. With this move, it was time for him to make a move. However, when she placed her chess piece, another golden chess piece appeared on the chessboard. Jiang Jiwon's smile froze on her face. Chu Luiyue poured a glass of wine out of boredom. I thought that this eldest Miss Jiang was really powerful, but I didn't expect. Did she overestimate herself or did God underestimate Rong Xiu? Did he really think that he could force Rong Xiu to act personally? Looking at the huge chessboard again, she suddenly narrowed her eyes and leaned closer to Dugu Debeo, who was sitting at the side, and lowered her voice. Debeo, why do I feel that this chessboard is somewhat familiar? Dugu Mabao's expression did not change. All chessboards in the world look the same. What's there to be familiar about? Something's not right. Chu Liwei shook his head and said firmly. I must have seen it before. This aura? Suddenly her pupils shrank and she looked at Dugu Mabao in disbelief. You pulled me down before, bang? There was a sudden explosion on the chessboard. A terrifying impact spread out in all directions. Jiang Jiwon was caught off guard, and she was the first to bear the brunt of it and instantly flew out. Ziyuan. Jiang Hetian was shocked and he immediately got up and threw out a force. Jiang Jiwon's body was instantly enveloped by a translucent barrier. With the help of this barrier, Jiang Jiwon finally landed safely. She looked at the chessboard in shock. The blue chess piece on it was already in a dead end. Digression, continue at 6 p.m. Chapter 1071. Jiang Jiwon, lost. Umo raised his hand and wrote. Jiang Jiwon of the Tomb of Immortal Water, 43 moves. This number was already the best compared to the previous girls, but she still couldn't reach the end and ask Rong Xiu to make a move. Crash. The chess pieces on the chessboard instantly disappeared and returned to their original state. The hall was silent. Everyone's eyes moved back and forth between the chessboard and Jiang Jiwon. Jiang Ziyuan felt as if there was a dagger on her back. She felt a burning pain on her face. She looked at the chessboard in front of her in disbelief. How could this be? This game was so difficult. If it were someone else, they probably wouldn't be able to reach this point. That was why she was sure that this game had reached the point where Rong Xiu needed to make a move. But, no. This also meant that someone had once taken more steps than her on this chessboard. But who could that person be? Could it be the clan leader or 36 respected Elder Ming? Jiang Jiwon couldn't guess. Alright Ziyuan, you're already first. Don't think too much about the rest. Jiang Hetian comforted her. No one knew a daughter better than a father. Of course, he knew that Jiang Jiwon was very unhappy and aggrieved. She probably wanted to wait for Rong Xiu to make a move so that the two of them could play together. Jiang Jiwon took a deep breath and forced a smile. Thank you, father. I understand. She just felt a little regretful. Rong Xiu's chess skills were superb. She had known for a long time. It was a pity that she had never played a proper game of chess with him. Most of the time, it was the clan leader who played with him while she watched from the side. Every time she was eager to play, she wanted to set up the chessboard and play with him to her heart's content. However, he always rejected her with one reason or another. She thought that with today's opportunity she could. Jiang Hetian comforted her in a low voice. His Highness is very good at this game. You still have some gaps. When you come to the Yuntian Tower in the future, you can learn more from His Highness. Jiang Jiwon's originally aggrieved and unwilling expression suddenly turned into a trace of shyness. Then she nodded seriously. Yes, I know. Chu Liwei, who was originally resting his chin on one hand and watching all of this with a lazy expression, raised his eyebrows. In the future? Come to the Yuntian Tower? Learn more from His Highness? A smile appeared on Chu Liyue's lips. So they had already made their plans for the future? Yan Qing looked at the crowd. Is there anything else you want to continue? There was complete silence. Haha, Madam Yan Qing, basically everyone who wants to try has already come up. Moreover, the best results have already come out. I think this round should be over, right? Jiang Hetian laughed. Although he looked amiable, his tone was incomparably firm and did not leave any room for refutation. Wait a minute. A clear and calm female voice sounded, breaking the silence. Chu Liyue's lips curved slightly, containing a hint of a smile. I want to give it a try too. You? Jiang Hetian asked instinctively, looking at her with a somewhat suspicious gaze. Just now, everyone had more or less seen how difficult this chess game was. If she still wanted to come up at this time, wouldn't she be asking for trouble? Chu Liyue raised his eyebrows. Why can't I? Yes. Of course you can. Before Jiang Hetian could say anything, 36 respected Elder Ming, who was sitting above, hurriedly urged her. Little girl, go quickly. Everyone, Chu Liyue, 36 respected Elder Ming seemed to have just realized that this was a little inappropriate. He quickly coughed, then quickly shot Rong Xiu a look. How is it? I've done a good job, haven't I? Rong Xiu's thin lips curved slightly, and there was a hint of a smile in his eyes. Praise the respected elders. Chu Liyue turned to look at Dugu Mabao beside her, pinched his chubby little face and snorted softly. I'll settle your score with you when I get back. Dugu Mabao's eyelids twitched. It was rare that he did not get angry because his precious face was being pinched. Seeing his reaction, Chu Liyue was even more certain of her guess. She collected her thoughts, dusted her clothes and walked toward the chessboard. Please make way. Chu Liyue's smile was very polite when she came up to her. Jiang Jiwan pursed her lips, feeling more and more uncomfortable. However, she forced herself to hold it in and did not flare up. She walked back with Jiang Hetian. However, her eyes did not move away from Chu Liyue. She wanted to see how capable this woman was. Light flashed on the huge chessboard. Chu Liyue stood with her hands behind her back straight. Her long black hair fell like clouds and she was dressed in a neat red dress. She seemed to be able to attract everyone's attention just by standing there. She stared at the chessboard for a moment, then raised her hand and placed a chess piece. A red force flew out and hit the chessboard instantly. Buzz. The chessboard vibrated. A golden go piece appeared right after. That familiar feeling was getting stronger and stronger. Chu Liyue did not hesitate at all and placed her chess pieces continuously. Soon, the crowd was shocked to find that she did not need to think at all when she was playing chess. Her movements were so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. Sometimes, before the golden chess piece could fully form on the chessboard, Chu Liyue would have already made her move. How is she so fast? It couldn't have been done randomly, right? Many people in the crowd began to question her. It can't be. Look at the chessboard, isn't she moving all the time? She's not playing randomly. She is really good at this. Her thoughts are quick and flexible. This ability is probably even better than Lady Jiang's. At this moment, Jiang Jiwan's expression had changed from indifference to shock. Of course, she could tell that Dugu Yu's skill level was higher than hers. And not just by a little. Her gaze was fixed on the chessboard. At the beginning she could still keep up, but gradually the game became more complicated, and she had to think for a while before making each move. However, Dugu Yu did not stop at all. Soon Jiang Jiwan's mind was in a mess. She's about to make the 43rd move. Suddenly someone shouted. If she makes one more move, she'll beat Lady Jiang. Before the voice could finish, Chu Liyue waved her hand and placed another chess piece without hesitation. Many people sucked in a cold breath. Dugu Yu's performance had already surpassed Jiang Jiwan's. Oh my god, I didn't expect Dugu Yu to be so good. How far do you think she'll go? I really can't tell, but, looking at how relaxed she is now, it shouldn't be a problem for her to ask His Highness for help, right? Even Lady Jiang couldn't do it. If Dugu Yu really succeeds, then, Jiang Jiwan bit her lip. Chu Liyue did not care about her surroundings. Now there was only the gigantic chessboard and Rong Xiu in front of her. Buzz. She placed a chess piece. This time, no golden chess piece appeared on the chessboard. Chu Liyue raised her head slightly and looked at the man sitting on the seat of honor opposite her. She raised her eyebrows and smiled brightly. Your Highness, please. Chapter 1072. Her smile was bright and resplendent, and her eyes were like stars. Her facial features were clearly ordinary, but because of this smile, they instantly became lively. Many people were slightly stunned. This woman looked ordinary at first glance, but upon closer inspection, she seemed to be extremely beautiful. Just the slight ripple of light in her jade-like eyes was enough to move people's hearts. Rongxiu didn't look surprised at all. Instead, he smiled slightly. His originally cold and noble eyes instantly melted like the ice in early spring. There seemed to be a vortex in his deep eyes that could easily swallow people and make them sink. He raised his hand and a golden stream of light flew out. Buzz! A golden chess piece fell, blocking the path of Chu Liyue's chess piece. His Highness really made a move. She shouldn't be able to hold on much longer, right? It's rumored that His Highness's chess skills are superb. So what? Even if she loses now, she's still number one. What's more, she's the only one who can ask His Highness to make a move. Countless eyes were focused on the two people facing each other in the main hall. They were all focused, afraid that they would miss a single thing. However, not everyone was like this. At the very least, Jiang Jiwon wasn't in the mood to patiently watch at this time. Her heart seemed to be clenched by something, and her chest felt suffocated. The trace of discomfort caused by Duguyu at the beginning quickly spread to her whole body at this time. Zion, how are you? Jiang Hetien frowned, his eyes full of worry. Jiang Jiwon forced a smile. Dad, don't worry. I'm fine. How could she be fine? She had always been outstanding since she was a child. Whether it was family background, appearance, or talent, she almost easily crushed others. She had always been the most eye-catching existence in the crowd. But now, all the glory had been taken away by the woman named Duguyu. She was obviously so ordinary and there wasn't a single highlight on her, but she seemed to have some kind of magic that could easily attract everyone's attention. Needless to say, the level she was showing at this time was extraordinary. Jiang Hetien glanced at the chessboard. Ziyuan, she should be about to lose now, right? He didn't really understand what was going on, but based on his past experience, Duguyu shouldn't be able to hold on for long. If she lost faster, Ziyuan's mood might be slightly better. However, Jiang Jiwon clenched her fists. Her throat seemed to be blocked by something and she couldn't say a word. It wasn't that she couldn't understand the intense battle on the chessboard, but it was precisely because she could understand that she felt even worse. Because compared to Rongxiu, Duguyu was actually not too inferior. The two of them were clearly evenly matched. Jiang Jiwon knew that she was definitely a genius in this aspect. She could easily crush 99% of the people here. However, compared to the woman standing in front of the chessboard with a calm and relaxed expression, it instantly dimmed and was not worth mentioning. Time slowly passed. Rongxiu and Chu Liyue had each placed their pieces dozens of times. The situation on the chessboard became more and more tangled, and the battle between the two sides became more and more tragic. Chu Liyue's red pieces were like a flood dragon, chasing Rongxiu relentlessly, trying to encircle and suppress him from all directions. His chess style was fierce. On the other hand, Rongxiu was more conservative, but his defense was tight, and there was still room for him to advance and retreat. Both sides had their own advantages and the battle was extremely fierce. The two of them went back and forth. The chessboard, which was already shining brightly, was now even more dazzling. Rongxiu's eyebrows twitched slightly. Even across the chessboard, he could still keenly perceive the biting cold air coming from the opposite side. He rubbed his temples helplessly, and a helpless and doting smile flashed across his eyes. If this could make her calm down, it would be good. Finally, when the huge chessboard was almost filled to the brim, the crimson flood dragon finally trapped the patch of golden light. The fierce battle and the chaotic flowing light had already attracted the attention of everyone in the hall. Everyone unconsciously held their breaths. The atmosphere became more and more tense. Life and death, it was at this moment. Chu Liyue looked at the chessboard in front of her. That familiar feeling had almost reached its peak at this moment. Countless scenes flashed through her mind. Those scenes that were once blurry and could not be seen clearly seemed to be gradually becoming clearer at this moment. But for some reason, there seemed to be a layer of fog in front of her. She knew very well that she was only one step away from seeing everything clearly. Within her dantian, her force surged wildly and finally gathered in her palm. Then she raised her hand and was about to place a piece. But for some reason, her hand suddenly trembled slightly. Something seemed to be gushing out from the bottom of her heart. She clenched her teeth and abruptly flung out the origin power. A red chess piece landed on the chessboard. Buzz! It was like a sword cutting through the throat. The golden color instantly dissipated. and it rapidly transformed into countless tiny golden light spots, spreading in all directions. Rong Xiu raised his hand, and the golden color that filled the sky quickly flew back. At the same time, the chessboard also silently dissipated. On the opposite side, the otherworldly and demonic man's lips curled up slightly. You win. Crack. The black pyramid in Chu Liuyue's dantian suddenly cracked open a third crack. A bright golden light pierced through it. In an instant, it was as if the thin veil in front of her had suddenly been lifted. Those scenes became clear. Digression, nothing today. Chapter 1073. Rong Xiu, you're going easy on me again. She heard her own annoyed voice in her head. One day, I'll beat you even if you don't go easy on me. The young man in front of her leaned back in his chair and picked up the ginger tea beside him. He squinted his deep phoenix eyes lazily and said slowly, "Sure." His voice was deep and pleasant, like the wind blowing across the strings of a zither. As he spoke, the cup of tea was brought to his lips. His thin scarlet lips covered the mouth of the white jade porcelain cup gently. "Hey Rong Xiu, that's my tea." She glanced at him from the corner of her eye and saw that he had taken the wrong cup. Rong Xiu paused and looked up. Her originally cold eyes seemed to be dyed with some warmth in an instant. It was like the setting sun by the river in the evening. The brilliant afterglow was reflected in the water, making it the color of the sky and the water. "Is that so?" A few vague syllables came from between his lips and teeth, with a hint of a smile. Just when she thought that he was going to put down the teacup, she suddenly saw the man in front of her move the teacup forward again. His lips moved slightly, and he gently folded the remaining trace of rouge over it. Her heart suddenly skipped a beat and she was stunned on the spot. Even though she was usually very cunning, she did not expect him to do this. He took a sip of tea and then put the teacup down slowly. Her lips were especially moist because they were stained with tea. Chu Liuyue's face suddenly turned red. It was as if a flame was burning. The scorching heat swept over and almost engulfed her in an instant. He seemed to be unaware of it and raised his eyebrows slightly. "So you drink ginger tea every day?" Chu Liyue seemed to have finally found her voice and snorted softly. "Ginger tea is bitter. Who told you to drink other people's tea? Now you're suffering, aren't you?" "Oh." Rong Xiu supported himself with one hand and looked at her with a faint smile. "I feel that this tea is sweet and delicious. The others can't even compare to a tenth of it." Chu Liyue finally couldn't sit still any longer and stood up abruptly. "I suddenly remembered that I haven't practiced the Qi sword art yet, so I'll go back first." With that, he left in a hurry. Rong Xiu looked over. She was walking down the small path on the cliff. Her footsteps were light, and her light-colored dress fluttered like a butterfly. Her fine black hair fluttered in the wind, lively and lively. After walking for some distance, she suddenly stopped and turned back to look at the cliff. Rong Xiu seemed to have expected this. He raised his teacup and saluted her from afar. "If you want to teach me a thing or two, Rong Xiu is always waiting." The woman immediately disappeared at an even faster speed. Rong Xiu's lips curled into a deep smile. That day the sky was clear and the wind was gentle. A man dressed in white was sitting in a pavilion on the cliff. He leaned against the cliff, and the mountain breeze blew up the corners of his clothes, making him look like an immortal. And beside his hand was a cup of tea. Bitter and sweet at the same time. Those scenes gradually disappeared. Chu Liuyue's eyes gradually focused. Everything in front of her was reflected in her eyes again. She opened her mouth. Rong Xiu's eyebrows moved slightly, and there seemed to be waves in his eyes. "Miss Dugu, what's wrong?" He lowered his voice, but there was a subtle calming power in it. Chu Liyue finally woke up completely. She closed her eyes and looked at Rong Xiu not far away. At that time, whether it was Rong Xiu or her, they didn't seem to be very old. Between their eyebrows, there was still the youthfulness and vitality unique to teenagers. At that time they should have known each other for a while. Although she couldn't remember exactly how long. But she clearly remembered that her heart was beating violently at that time. That was the first time her heart was beating like a drum, her face was hot and she didn't know what to do. But there was also an indescribable subtle joy. It was around then or even earlier. She had already fallen in love with that person. From that time until now she didn't know how many days had passed. But they were still together in the end. Chu Liyue's eyes flashed and she shook her head. "It's nothing, I just remembered some things." She raised her chin slightly, raised her eyebrows and smiled. "For this round I should be number one, right?" There was silence. Everyone looked at the woman standing in the middle of the hall, and for a moment they were still in a daze. She was number one just like that? Previously, so many people wanted to ask His Highness to help, but they couldn't. But not only did she do it, she even won against His Highness. Rong Xiu's lips curled slightly, and there was a hint of a smile on his face. "You're number one, you deserve it." Jiang Jiwan broke her delicately manicured nails. An intense pain came from her fingertips, and her face turned even paler. But these feelings, compared to the frustration and unwillingness in her heart, were not worth mentioning. How could this be? She was supposed to be number one. From the beginning until now, she had never doubted that she was the most outstanding one here, and also the most suitable and qualified person to be the princess consort. She had taken it for granted, so she didn't feel any pressure. Until now, when Duguyu snatched the first place, she finally realized that there was always someone better. The position that she thought was at her fingertips was actually not that secure for her to sit on. In fact, if the women from other tribes had won, she wouldn't feel so bad. She would rather let Pei Pei and the others win than see Duguyu standing in the middle and being the focus of everyone. This was because Rong Xiu clearly treated her differently. Jiang Jiwan's heart surged with an unprecedented sense of crisis. Jiang Hitian turned his head and saw Jiang Jiwan's embarrassed and wronged expression. He frowned. Even he didn't expect that the first place would be snatched by Duguyu, who came out of nowhere. Ziyuan must be feeling terrible. She was used to being proud. How could she accept such an outcome? Ziyuan, don't worry, this is only the first stage. You just have to work hard and use your full strength. You will definitely be able to turn the tables. Jiang Hitian comforted her patiently. But she won the first place, Jiang Jiwan murmured. So what? Don't tell me that the Yuntian Tower can really let such an unidentified woman become the princess consort? Jiang Hitian was very confident. As long as Rong Xiu weighed the pros and cons, he would definitely leave the princess consort to the immortal water tomb. As for the others, those lowly concubines, he could just pick any one of them. None of that mattered. As he spoke, he saw from the corner of his eye that there was blood dripping from Jiang Jiwan's palm. He was shocked. Zion, your hand? Jiang Jiwan came back to her senses and subconsciously leaned her hand back, gritting her teeth. I'm fine. Father is right, I will take back the first place later. She would never let Duguyu steal the limelight again. Thinking of this, she looked up at Rong Xiu. Your Highness, the first stage is over. Then let's start the second stage. She had to win this second stage. Chapter 1074. The second stage is also very simple. The Rong Xiu raised his hand. A crack suddenly appeared in the void. Then a huge snow-white figure slowly walked out of it. It was a white lion with a muscular body. Its fur was snow-white, and only its eyes were icy blue, emitting a cold light. Its aura was shocking. It walked toward the Rong Xiu, its paws landing on the ground as it walked silently. But those sharp claws were vaguely visible. It walked to the Rong Xiu's side and lay down obediently, looking down with a pair of majestic and murderous eyes. As if looking at ants. Wherever it passed, the cold air was oppressive. Everyone subconsciously held their breaths. This was a divine beast. And its level was extremely high. Xue's eyes contracted. Divine beast. The Rong Xiu stroked Xue's head and said casually, whoever can subdue it will be considered qualified. In the main hall there was a series of gasps. The divine beast contracted by His Highness the Saint. It was rumored to be ferocious and extremely powerful. It was obvious how difficult it was to subdue it. Those who were slightly weaker would be courting death if they went up. Some of the women's faces had already turned pale, and they were trembling. They thought that participating in the consort selection was just a competition of family background, talent, and beauty. But they didn't expect that His Highness the Saint would take them by surprise. To compete in this? Gosh, that's a divine beast. According to rumors, its strength is comparable to a god-level master. I'm only at the peak of level 8, how can I be its opponent? I don't dare to even level 9. I really don't know what His Highness the Saint is thinking. If I also have a contracted divine beast, it'll be much easier, right? It's easy to say, but how can a divine beast be so easy to obtain? Ordinary people like us don't have to think about the position of consort. Only the most powerful clans had such resources. For example, Miss Jiang. It was said that when she was 10 years old, Yun Tiang's clan leader had personally caught a divine beast cub and made it her contracted magical beast. There's no way we can catch up to this kind of luck. Many people started whispering to each other. Jiang Jiwan heaved a sigh of relief. Xuexue? That's good. On the one hand, she had contracted a divine beast and was not weaker than Xue Xue. On the other hand, she and Xue Xue could be considered old acquaintances, so it was naturally much easier for her to deal with Xue Xue. Thinking of this, Jiang Jiwan took a step forward. Your Highness, I'm willing to be the first. Chu Liyue's mouth twitched when he saw Xue Xue lying beside Rong Xiu's feet. So the reason it left earlier was to make an appearance now? She really didn't know what would happen if these people knew that this majestic white lion had asked for a hug from her the night before. What would happen? Seeing that Jiang Jiwan was going to be the first one, Chu Liyue simply stepped aside. Xue Xue immediately looked at her with resentment. I thought she was going to be the first one. If she made a move directly, wouldn't the second round be over? Now, he had to drag this out even more and go through a lot of trouble. Chu Liyue pretended not to see it and smiled politely at Jiang Jiwan. Miss Jiang, please. After he finished speaking, he returned to his seat with a carefree look on his face. Xue Xue looked up at her mistress again. If it weren't for you, would I be implicated? Rong Xiu also glanced at it indifferently. It only came back after shouting 3 times. I wonder whose demonic beast this is? Xue Xue sighed in its heart. If it wasn't for its bad eyesight back then, how could it be so miserable now? Rong Xiu raised his chin. Xue Xue then stood up. Let's solve these problems first. Swoosh. Xue Xue leaped from the seat of honor to the middle of the hall, only 10 steps away from Jiang Jiwan. Its coquettish and shameless expression had long since disappeared and was replaced by a cold and dignified expression. Chu Liyue watched from the side and rested her chin on one hand. She found it very interesting. It was only at this moment that she belatedly remembered that such a huge beast was actually a divine beast. Speaking of which, she actually hadn't seen Xue Xue fight seriously. Who asked it to always hide its true strength like its master in the past? Thinking of this, Chu Liyue raised her eyebrows and looked like she was ready to watch a show. Xue Xue, long time no see. A smile appeared on Jiang Jiwan's face. She knew very well how much Rong Xiu valued this divine beast. It was important to have a good relationship with it. But in the face of Jiang Jiwan's flattery, Xue Xue seemed unmoved. It tilted its head and a trace of impatience appeared in its eyes. It didn't seem to care about the identity of the person in front of it. Instead, it was only blaming her for not starting. Its sharp claws scratched the ground. A thin layer of frost quickly condensed. It was already prepared for battle. Jiang Jiwan instantly felt very awkward. She took a deep breath and comforted herself. Perhaps it was because they hadn't seen each other for many years that it was treating her like this. However, she was still confident that she could subdue it. So, she put away these thoughts and held her breath. The next moment, a blue force gathered in her palm. 6-pole lock. The blue force instantly transformed into 6 ropes and flew toward Xue Xue, enveloping it. In the blink of an eye, the 6 ropes had already formed a huge hexagon in the air above Xue Xue. And inside, light flickered and quickly formed a strange pattern. Immortal Water Tomb's Jiang family's totem. A cry of surprise came from the crowd. Looks like she's determined to win this round. She's even summoned her totem. This 6-pole lock is one of the ultimate moves of the Immortal Water Tomb. It looks simple, but in reality, its sealing power is extremely strong. Rumor has it that even if one's strength is 1 level lower than the opponent, the cultivator can still use this move to seal the opponent in battle. And then counterattack. Using this move to deal with this round is just right. If Jiang Jiwan directly wins, then the rest of the people don't need to go up. Jiang Jiwan looked at Xue Xue. Xue Xue, if you admit defeat now, I can stop. This is good for both of them. Xue Xue looked up and a trace of disdain flashed across its eyes. Admit defeat? Wasn't she overestimating herself? 6-pole lock? What the hell? Xue Xue raised its paw and waved it fiercely. Several streaks of light flew past. Chi chi chi. Instantly, the crowd heard the sound of something being cut apart. Then they saw that the 6-pole lock that was hovering above Xue Xue's head had been cut open from the middle. The light on it quickly dimmed. The blood in Jiang Jiwan's chest and abdomen surged. She staggered and almost fell to the ground. She looked at Xue Xue in shock. How did its strength suddenly improve so much? Xue Xue bared its teeth and swiped its paw at her. Did you really think that I ate so much yellow sand for nothing? Digression, Kavinka felt terrible. Update at 6 p.m. Chapter 1075. A vigorous figure suddenly appeared in front of Jiang Jiwan. It jumped with all its might and blocked Xue Xue's claw. Rip, The sound of sharp claws tearing through flesh was jarring. Jiang Ji-won hurriedly retreated, her face pale. In that instant she really thought she was going to die under Xue Xue's claws. Everyone looked over and saw that the one blocking Jiang Ji-won was also a fiend. It was a muscular leopard. Its entire body was brown with black spots, and it had a pair of wings on its back. A pair of jade-green eyes, deep and terrifying. This was Jiang Ji-won's contracted divine beast, the double-winged black star leopard. At this moment Xue Xue had viciously torn off a piece of flesh on its back. Fresh blood was dripping from the wound. On the other hand, Xue Xue's claws were stained with some blood. It was completely unaffected. Everyone could see that although this double-winged black star leopard was also a divine beast, its level and ability were obviously lower than Xue Xue's. In such a situation, it would not be easy for Jiang Ji-won to win. Jiang Ji-won was still in shock. If the double-winged black star leopard had not appeared in time, she would have. The more panicked she was, the deeper the hatred in her heart. She gritted her teeth. Leopard, go. However, the double-winged black star leopard did not immediately move. It seemed to hesitate. It lowered its body warily, but its gaze toward Xue Xue was filled with respect that could not be ignored. The hierarchy of fiends was strict. High-level fiends usually had strong control and deterrence over low-level fiends. This was an inheritance that came from the bloodline. All fiends had to obey it. Hence, although the double-winged black star leopard had heard Jiang Ji-won's command, its respect for higher-level fiends could not be erased. It had only jumped out in a moment of desperation earlier because it was forced by the power of the master-servant contract between Jiang Ji-won and it. However, it was really difficult for it to fight Xue Xue head-on now. Jiang Ji-won was furious. Leopard. The winged black star leopard scratched the ground twice with its claws. Xue Xue glared fiercely at the man and beast opposite her. A cold light flashed across her eyes. In the next moment it quickly scuttled out. Take the initiative to attack. Their target was the winged black star panther. But the double-winged black star leopard spread its wings and was about to fly into the air to fight. However, before it could do anything, there was a flash of light and Xue Xue was already right in front of it. The winged black star leopard was shocked. He immediately ran in another direction. It was fast. However, Xue Xue was even faster. With a light tap of its toes, it instantly left several afterimages in the air. Several exclamations came from the crowd. Although the double-winged black star leopard's level is lower than the white lion's, its speed is top-notch. Logically speaking, it should have the upper hand in this aspect. How did this happen? In the blink of an eye, Xue Xue was already in front of the winged black star leopard. It raised its claws and slapped down. But the winged black comet panther was unable to react in time, and its head was directly hit. Its vision turned black, and its body fell heavily to the ground uncontrollably. Bang! A muffled sound was heard. Leopard. Jiang Ji-won was shocked and immediately wanted to charge over. However, Xue Xue did not give her the chance. It quickly landed and opened its mouth to bite without hesitation. No! Jiang Ji-won's voice became shrill. Crack! The sound of bones breaking was exceptionally crisp. One of the winged black star leopard's wings had been bitten off from the middle by Xue Xue. Blood splattered everywhere. The black bones were exposed and one could even see the broken stubble. It was an eerie sight. Jiang Ji-won gasped. She was so agitated by the scene before her that she almost fainted. Her father had personally found this winged black star leopard for her on her 10th birthday. After so many years, she had taken good care of it and was very attached to it. Now that one of its wings had been bitten off, how could she bear it? Xue Xue raised its head. Its icy blue eyes were cold and had a hint of provocation. Its meaning was clear. Do you want to continue? The winged black star leopard struggled to get up. Unfortunately, Xue Xue was suppressing it and it could not move. Jiang Ji-won was shocked and furious. However, she knew that if this continued, it would not end well. She was unwilling to accept this. She clenched her fists and her nails pierced her palms. Everything that had happened earlier kept replaying in her mind. The six-pole lock was easily torn apart, and the winged black star leopard could not retaliate. I admit defeat. Jiang Ji-won gritted her teeth and spat out these words. The first challenge of the second stage ended just like that. It started naturally but ended unexpectedly. Before this, everyone thought highly of Jiang Ji-won. However, who would have thought that things would turn out like this? Xue Xue's attacks were clean and direct. It was a one-sided suppression. Even someone as strong as Jiang Ji-won was defeated. After a rough calculation, He realized that he hadn't even been able to hold on for 15 minutes. Hearing her admit defeat, Shue Shue jumped down from the winged black star leopard. It looked down and rubbed its claws against the ground in disdain. The winged black star leopard was such a lowly creature. Its blood would only stain its noble claws. If not for the fact that it wanted to end the battle quickly, it would not have bothered to do this. Jiang Jiwon retreated with the winged black star leopard. Rong Xiu leaned against the throne. His expression was still languid. Next. His voice was low and pleasant. It was light and gentle. However, the expressions of many women changed. Next. Even Jiang Jiwon was in such a state. Wouldn't the others be worse off? They yearned for the position of princess consort, but they had to be alive first. They did not want to lose their lives for nothing. Wouldn't that be too much of a loss? Rong Xiu raised his brows and looked around. Many people lowered their heads. They were obviously unwilling to accept the challenge. 36 respected Elder Ming looked at Chu Luiyue a few times. He could not help but urge her. Didn't you form a contract with a divine beast too? He looked like he was about to pull Chu Luiyue up. Upon hearing this, many people in the palace looked at Chu Luiyue, including Jiang Jiwon. She was treating the winged black star leopard's wounds. When she heard that, she immediately looked up. Divine beast? That Dugiyu has won too? She pursed her lips. So what if she has a divine beast? If she goes up, she'll end up like me. Chu Luiyue stood up and walked toward Shue Shue. Finally, she stopped about 10 steps away. She has a divine beast too? I wonder what level it is. She doesn't seem to have any background. Her divine beast's level shouldn't be too high, right? But she knows His Highness the Saint and 36 respected Elder Ming. Maybe, amidst the crowd's discussions, a small red figure appeared on Chu Luiyue's shoulder. It was Dumpling. Then, with a whoosh, Dumpling suddenly spread her wings. See how I'll deal with you today. Shue Shue also seemed to be energized. Roar. The hatred of stealing my master is irreconcilable. Whoever wins will be her fiend. Chu Luiyue. Chapter 1076. She raised her hand. Hey that, whoosh. Before she could finish her sentence, Dumpling had already flown out. Shue Shue leaped. The two weapons clashed and instantly became entangled in a fight. You want to steal my master? Dream on. You've already gotten such a good thing, and you're not letting other beasts dream on? I want it. Bah. You shameless thing. Your real master is still sitting up there. Talk after you win. One Snow White and one Crimson Red, the two figures entangled with each other, and it was difficult to tell who had the upper hand. Chu Luiyue curled her fingers and retracted her hand awkwardly. It seemed like she didn't need to do anything. She raised her eyes to take a look. A certain someone who was blatantly despised had a calm expression, and there was even a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. However, when she occasionally looked at Shue Shue, there was a hint of coldness. Chu Luiyue mourned for Shue Shue in her heart for a moment, and then chose to watch the show. Anyway, this wasn't their first time fighting, and it would naturally be fine after the fight. Compared to Chu Luiyue's relaxed and calm expression, the others who were watching were dumbfounded. They looked at the scene in front of them in disbelief. Dugiyu's divine beast was actually on par with His Highness the Holy Sun's divine beast? That's a red-tailed phoenix. Rumor has it that its bloodline is closest to the ancient divine beast, the crimson gold heavenly phoenix. Someone suddenly shouted in shock. According to this level and strength, it was normal for it to have such combat strength. However, not only did this explanation not clear up the doubts of the crowd, but it also made them even more shocked. Red-tailed phoenix? Such a divine beast is extremely precious, and even the various tribes might not have it. This Dugiyu? Isn't her luck too good? It's not just luck. The red-tailed phoenix has a noble status and is extremely difficult to tame. If one doesn't have a certain level of strength, it's definitely impossible to make it willingly form a contract. The way I see it, this Dugiyu does have some skills. There's always someone better than you. Although she looks ordinary, there's really nothing to say about her ability. Jiang Jiwon could hear all kinds of discussions. She gritted her teeth and the veins on the back of her hand popped out. Red-tailed red phoenix, red-tailed phoenix. That was indeed an existence of a higher level than her contracted magical beast. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she definitely wouldn't have believed that such an ordinary girl of unknown origin could actually form a contract with such a divine beast. She had always thought that the winged black star leopard she had contracted was already very good. After all, talented people like Rongxiu were extremely rare, and divine beasts like Shui were also extremely hard to find. But this Duguyu, the most infuriating thing was that while the two spiritual beasts were exchanging blows, she was standing by the side with a lazy expression, as if she didn't care about this matter at all. Suddenly Jiang Jiwan was startled, and a guess appeared in her mind. That Duguyu looked so confident, could it be that she was already certain that he would win? She knew Rongxiu and 36 respected Elder Ming. Moreover, the attitude of those two towards her was indeed different from that of ordinary people. In the end, Shui was also Rongxiu's contracted divine beast. If he wanted to, Shui's victory or defeat was still in his hands? Screech. Following Dumpling's clear cry, the two entangled beasts finally separated. Shui's fur was messy, and there were a few bloodstains on its body. Especially its nose, which was directly pecked by Dumpling's sharp beak and was bleeding. It was a miserable sight. Dumpling wasn't any better. Many of its feathers had been plucked off, and there was even a bald patch on its tail. The two stared at each other, panting heavily. It was obvious that they were still not convinced of each other's victory. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that this battle was almost a draw, with both sides winning and losing. But this result was already very shocking. There was almost no one else in the entire Yuntian Tower who could fight to a draw with His Highness the Saint's contracted divine beast. Seeing that the two were about to continue fighting, Chu Liwei finally spoke. Dumpling, come back. Only then did Dumpling retract its wings and return to its original small form, landing on Chu Liu's shoulder. Then it raised its head and glanced at Dumpling very coldly. What's there to be so arrogant about? This master belongs to whoever it belongs to. Shui roared indignantly. Dumpling sneered, then nestled in Chu Liu's shoulder, intimately rubbing against her face, and threw a disdainful look at Shui. I'm going to piss you off. Shui was angry and couldn't help but look at Chu Liu pitifully. Ahem. Chu Liu coughed. You guys still want to fight? Shui turned around resentfully. Was that? It listlessly returned to Rongxiu's side and lay down weakly. Everyone was speechless. It admitted defeat. Rongxiu glanced at it. It didn't seem to have deliberately gone easy on it just now. In that case, Dumpling's strength had increased rapidly, and it had indeed reached the point where it could fight with Shui. As if it had been seen through, Shui simply buried its head. I'm not listening. Rongxiu raised his eyebrows slightly and looked away. It seems that Miss Dugu still wins this round. Wait. Before Rongxiu could finish speaking, he was suddenly interrupted. The person who spoke was Jiang Jiwan, who had left the arena in a sorry state just now. She stood up. Your Highness, there's something I don't understand. Rongxiu's expression was indifferent. Miss Jiang, please speak. Jiang Jiwan was silent for a moment, then raised her hand and pointed directly at Chu Liu. I want to know, did Shui deliberately let her win that round just now? The crowd was in an uproar. Jiang Jiwan was too bold to directly ask such a question? Rongxiu seemed to smile. Miss Jiang, are you suspecting that I'm unfair? Shui was his contracted divine beast. Suspecting Shui was naturally suspecting him. Jiang Jiwan pursed her lips. Ziyuan doesn't dare. Ziyuan only asks that your Highness give me a chance. If Miss Dugu can defeat me, I will naturally be convinced. As she spoke, she looked at Chu Liu and said firmly. I wonder if Miss Dugu dares to accept? There was dead silence all around. Countless pairs of eyes looked at Chu Liu. In fact, not only Jiang Jiwan, but they also had the same doubts in their hearts. In this almost suffocating atmosphere, Chu Liu raised her eyebrows slightly, then smiled slowly, and there seemed to be stars twinkling in her eyes. She nodded with a relaxed expression. Digression. Kawan felt uncomfortable. Today at 4 o'clock. Tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Chapter 1077. Then Chu Liu's gaze shifted, and it landed on the bloody winged black star leopard at the side. Miss Jiang's contracted divine beast doesn't seem to have the strength to fight anymore. Although it can't, there's still me. Jiang Jiwan walked forward. The two of them faced each other. As long as you and your divine beast can defeat me, I'll be convinced. As soon as Jiang Ziyuan finished speaking, she closed her eyes. A layer of faint light flickered. Then a shocking aura erupted from her body. Demigod. Several gasps could be heard from the crowd. She has indeed broken through to the demigod realm like the rumors say. A 22-year-old demigod. She should be a genius second only to His Highness the Holy Sun, right? I heard that she's also a mystic master. She's really outstanding. I wonder what Duguyu's strength is at? Hearing the discussions around her, Chu Liyue tilted her head and glanced at Rong Xiu. His strength had indeed reached the demigod realm and might even be higher now. If she wanted to catch up to him, she would have to spend a lot of time and effort. Miss Dugu, please? Jiang Jiwon said. Chu Liyue retracted her gaze and smiled. Then she reached out and touched the chain around her neck. That was the yuan item that Dugu Mabao gave her to conceal her aura. With a touch, the layer of concealment on her body dissipated. She activated her force and her real aura appeared. There was a moment of dead silence in the main hall. Jiang Jiwon was the first to widen her eyes in shock. A stage 7 warrior? Are you kidding me? This Duguyu, who had always been extremely powerful, in the end, was just a mere rank 7 warrior? She thought that she was at least a stage 9 warrior. Otherwise, how could she be so bold and presumptuous? Chu Liyue didn't seem to notice anything wrong. She smiled and asked, "Why? What? Is there a problem?" This was an admission. Because she was too shocked, Jiang Jiwon couldn't react for a while. She couldn't help but laugh, her eyes filled with absurdity and disbelief. Rank 7 warrior? Are you sure you want to continue fighting me? She only needed one move to finish off a cultivator of this level. Chu Liyue blinked. Wasn't eldest Miss Jiang the one who suggested this? Could it be that she's regretting it? Jiang Jiwon found this ridiculous. Is this Duguyu crazy? Did she know the difference between a rank 7 warrior and a demigod? At this time the surrounding crowd also came back to their senses. The way they looked at Chu Liyue was speechless. It was as if they were looking at an ignorant clown. A rank 7 warrior dares to be so arrogant? To think that I thought she could fight with eldest young Miss Jiang just now. Diske. How did a cultivator of this level get in here? In this entire ethereal hall, there shouldn't be any cultivator lower than her, right? The crowd discussed fervently. There were even people who deliberately asked Lin Tianfeng, Lin Tianfeng, how come the ethereal hall is so desolate? Patriarch Lin, when did the heavenly cave cliff fall to such an extent that even a mere rank 7 martial artist is qualified to come to the heavenly cloud tower? Their words were filled with sarcasm. In the world of God, the strong were respected. A rank 7 warrior like Chu Liyue wasn't qualified to be placed here. It was no wonder the crowd had such an attitude. Lin Tianfeng's brows were tightly knitted together. Although Miss Dugu's cultivation isn't high, she's an 8th grade celestial physician. Furthermore, she cured my son Ji Fei's illness. Our Lin family is indebted to her, and she's an honored guest of the ethereal hall. I hope that everyone will be careful with their words. As soon as he said that, some people quietened down. That Duguyu was actually a celestial physician? Although an 8th grade celestial physician wasn't the best in the eyes of the crowd, her identity as a celestial physician was indeed worthy of respect. Not to mention she looked very young. If she really had top-notch talent as a celestial physician, everyone would be convinced. However, there were some who didn't think much of it. Lin Tianfeng, even if you want to speak up for her, you don't have to lie like that, right? Your ethereal hall also has a 9th grade celestial physician, and even they couldn't do anything about it after so many years, let alone an 8th grade celestial physician? This ear-piercing voice came from the corner. Lin Tianfeng turned around and saw that the one who spoke was Cold Spring of the Frosty Mountain Valley. He said calmly, "With His Highness here, I wouldn't dare to lie." "You?" Cold Spring choked. Now that Lin Tianfeng had brought up His Highness, who would dare to speak up? He flicked his sleeves fiercely. Even if she's an 8th grade celestial physician, she's bound to lose this round. Jiang Jiwon raised her chin slightly. "If you admit defeat now, I'll let you go." His eyes and expression were filled with a trace of arrogance and lofty aura. It was as if Chu Liyue was just a lowly ant in front of her. This tone made Chu Liyue very unhappy. She shrugged. "I'm sorry, but I don't have such plans for the time being." Jiang Jiwon sneered inwardly. "You don't know what's good for you? Alright. Since that's the case, let's begin. I hope that later Miss Dugu won't regret it." Jiang Jiwon didn't want Duguyu to give up either. She wanted to take this opportunity to teach her a lesson. Anyway, she had already pushed it away, but Duguyu didn't want to take the opportunity. Then, there wouldn't be a chance to regret it later. Chu Liyue nodded and took a step back. Jiang Jiwon was stunned. Chu Liyue patted Dumpling on her shoulder. "Dumpling, go help Miss Jiang move her muscles first." Jiang Jiwon came back to her senses and mocked and despised her in her heart. She knew that she was no match for her, so she sent a divine beast to fight? What a good plan. Unfortunately, this Dugiyu was too naive. Divine beasts were very strong, especially the red-tailed phoenix in front of her with an extremely powerful bloodline power. Unfortunately, this was Dugiyu's contracted divine beast. The level it could perform was closely related to Dugiyu's own strength. A divine beast contracted by a 7th grade warrior was just a joke. Swoosh. Jiang Jiwon waved her hand and a blue cloak flew out. That cloak was light and agile, and when it fluttered in the wind, one could vaguely see silver light spots. A shocking pressure spread out from it. Mid-grade divine weapon, wind calming silk? The immortal water mausoleum indeed has a deep foundation. To casually use a mid-grade divine weapon. This time, the red-tailed phoenix is in danger. Jiang Jiwon's slender waist turned, and at the same time she waved out the wind-calming silk. The sound of something breaking through the air was heard. Like a blue stream of water, it flew out instantly. Whoosh! Dumpling flapped her wings. A ball of red flames also quickly met the attack. The scorching hot temperature instantly raised the temperature of the entire hall. Chapter 1078. Boom. The red and blue colors collided fiercely. Sparks flew everywhere. However, the calming wind silk did not directly penetrate this terrifying fireball. Instead, the edges were stained with red flames. Sparks spread. Jiang Jiwon was shocked and swung it hard. Light flashed on the calming wind silk. Instantly, it was as if frost was shaken off. Those flames were suppressed and then extinguished. But this was only a small part. The huge fireball in front of her was still like an impassable wall. It blocked the path of the calming wind silk. Jiang Jiwon's heart stirred. Her footsteps crisscrossed, and she quickly left the place and ran in another direction. At the same time, the calming wind silk also changed its position in midair. From the initial direct attack, it changed to entangling the fireball. Soon, half of the fireball was covered by the calming wind silk. Screech! Dumpling let out a clear cry. It flapped its wings and rushed directly toward Jiang Jiwon. A strong wind blew. Jiang Jiwon knew that things were not good. She immediately set up a barrier in front of her and at the same time, she tiptoed and retreated. Crack! Tuanzi smashed the enchantment with its claws. Jiang Jiwon's chest tightened, and a trace of surprise arose in her heart. That Dugiyu was just a rank 7 warrior. How could her contracted divine beast be so powerful? She swung her wrist. The calming wind silk flew toward Dumpling with a cold aura. The moment it was about to approach, several lightning flashed. This was Jiang Jiwon using the power of Tianlei gathered on it. Dugiyu had not broken through to the god realm, so her contracted divine beast would definitely not be able to withstand this power. Just as this thought flashed through Jiang Jiwon's mind, she saw the red-tailed phoenix opposite her tear at the calming wind silk without any hesitation. Swish! Dumpling actually cut a hole in the calming wind silk. And those several powers of Tianlei seemed to have no effect on it at all. How is this possible? Jiang Jiwon was shocked. However, she did not know that Dumpling was not born a red-tailed red phoenix. It was only after experiencing the lightning tribulation that it finally broke through its shackles and stepped into this level. Therefore it did not fear the power of Tianlei. Moreover, although Chu Luiyue was not a divine realm master, he had a trace of divine power in his body. With this power, Dumpling would be able to display extraordinary strength. Seeing that this trick wouldn't work, Jiang Jiwon made a prompt decision and pulled the wind-fixing silk in front of her. At the same time she took a few steps back and stood firm. She closed her eyes, crossed her hands in front of her, and the aura around her soared. A ball of blue origin power gathered in her palm. At the same time, a strange pattern appeared between her brows. It was the totem of the immortal water mausoleum. In an instant, a vast and majestic pressure that seemed to have come from ancient times descended. The crowd was in an uproar. Is she going to use her totem power? I didn't expect this red-tailed red phoenix to be able to force her to this extent. That divine beast is powerful, but after Jiang Jiwon uses this trick, this battle should be over. You have to know that with the support of totem power, a cultivator can display strength that is far beyond their original level. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes. She did feel a faint threat from Jiang Jiwon. A wave spread from Jiang Jiwon's body. Then, a blue light flew out from the totem between her brows. Bang! The blue light instantly turned into countless light spots, with Jiang Jiwon as the center, spreading in all directions. Wherever the blue light spots passed, the space froze inch by inch. Very quickly, the blue dots of light around her formed a huge sphere. Dumpling was also trapped in it. Chu Luiyue slowly clenched her fists and stared at the scene in front of her. This was totem power? Swoosh. Jiang Jiwan suddenly opened her eyes. Black primordial slash. As soon as she finished speaking, a blue light blade flew out from her palm. A sharp sound was heard. In the next moment, the blue light blade was already heading straight for Dumpling. Dumpling wanted to break free from the predicament in front of her, but her movements became very slow. Because the totem power that Jiang Jiwan erupted had already helped her form a divine territory, and it had an extremely terrifying pressure. Dumpling was no match for it at all. The light blade was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it was already in front of Dumpling and it was about to cut off her neck. Jiang Jiwan's lips curled into a smug sneer. So what if there was a divine beast? Her master didn't have the strength and was still vulnerable in the end. At this moment, a black shadow suddenly flew over. It directly passed through the blue divine territory and blocked in front of the red-tailed red phoenix. Boom. The blue light blade was hit by a force and shattered with a bang. Jiang Jiwan suffered a backlash and her chest shook and she spat out a mouthful of blood. She looked up in shock and anger, only to see a huge black eagle blocking all her attacks. When she saw the other party's appearance, Jiang Jiwan suddenly widened her eyes, and then she couldn't help but exclaim, "The legendary three-eyed eagle? Those shiny black feathers, those sharp and cold vertical pupils, that terrifying aura that made people's hearts turn cold? Wasn't this the legendary divine beast, the legendary three-eyed eagle?" The other people in the hall were also shocked by this sudden scene. Originally, the battle was going well and Jiang Jiwan was about to win. Why did a legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly appear? The legendary three-eyed eagle hugged its wings and then suddenly spread them out. Boom. An astonishing pressure spread out. A dazzling golden light flew out from its vertical pupil. Like a sharp sword, it directly split the blue divine territory in front of it in half. Jiang Jiwan knew that this was not good and immediately wanted to retreat. However, she was fast, but the legendary three-eyed eagle was faster. In the blink of an eye, the golden light had already entered an unstoppable state and was heading straight for her. Jiang Jiwan was extremely shocked. She hurriedly pulled the calming wind silk in front of her to block the attack. However, the calming wind silk barely managed to block the attack for her before it shattered with a bang. Jiang Jiwan was hit, and her body flew backward and fell heavily to the ground. A muffled sound. Jiang Jiwan's body was in severe pain, and her head was dizzy and she almost fainted. "Ziyuan." Jiang Hetian suddenly stood up. "Patriarch Jiang." Rong Xiu, who was sitting at the head of the table, suddenly spoke lazily. "If you go on stage now, it's equivalent to representing Jiang Jiwan to admit defeat." Jiang Hetian suddenly stopped in his tracks. Looking at the blood-stained and pale Jiang Jiwan, he clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked. At this moment, his hatred for Chu Luiyue had reached the extreme. Jiang Jiwan was the apple of his eye, and she had never been beaten to such a state in all these years. His eyes were filled with anger as he shouted at Chu Luiyue. "Dugiyu? How dare you use such a despicable method in front of His Highness the Saint and everyone else?" Chu Luiyue narrowed his eyes. "Despicable method? May I ask, Patriarch Jiang, what have I done to cross the line? This is a duel between you and Ziyuan, and you openly asked for external help. You, Patriarch Jiang, you've misunderstood," said Chu Luiyue with a smile, interrupting him. "This legendary three-eyed eagle is also my contracted divine beast." Chapter 1079. Jiang Hetian's expression froze. The hall suddenly quieted down. Countless eyes filled with shock and suspicion turned to Chu Luiyue. What did she say? That legendary three-eyed eagle was also her contracted divine beast? You're lying. Jiang Hetian snapped out of his daze, his first reaction being disbelief. A person can only contract one divine beast, that's impossible. The truth is right before your eyes. If Patriarch Jiang refuses to believe it, then there's nothing I can do. Chu Luiyue raised an eyebrow at the two divine beasts. Do you want one of you to stay or do you want to attack together? The two of them looked at each other and separated. Then they surrounded Jiang Ziyuan from the front and the back. It was obvious that they were going to attack together. Chu Luiyue rubbed her forehead and smiled helplessly at Jiang Hetian. Patriarch Jiang, I'm so sorry. You see, both of them have bad tempers. Sometimes I can't control them. Jiang Hetian's eyebrows twitched. What a cunning Duguyu. She clearly didn't want to let Jiang Ji-won go, but she pushed the blame onto the two divine beasts. Jiang Hetian's veins bulged. What kind of trick did you use? Although he asked this question, Jiang Hetian knew in his heart that these two divine beasts should indeed belong to Duguyu. Both the red-tailed phoenix and the legendary three-eyed eagle were divine beasts with extremely powerful bloodlines. If such existences were not willing, then no one could force them to do anything. Especially when it came to recognizing a master. It should be known that most of these mythological beasts were extremely arrogant. If one were to simply use some violent means to subdue them, they would rather commit suicide than submit to a cultivator that they were unwilling to follow. The fact that she had contracted a red-tailed phoenix was enough to make others envious and shocked. Who knew that she had a legendary three-eyed eagle as well? This was simply inconceivable. But now Jiang Hetian had no time to think about it. If Patriarch Jiang insists, then there's nothing I can do. We can discuss this matter later, but for now, let's settle the matter of this duel, said Chu Liwei lazily as she looked at the other side. Jiang Ji-won was knocked to the ground and had just barely managed to stand up. Her face and body were covered in messy bloodstains, and her expression was extremely ugly. He stared at Chu Liwei in shock and anger. She had also heard everything that was said earlier clearly. To divine beast, what is the origin of this Duguyu? Eldest Miss Jiang, do you admit defeat or continue? Asked Chu Liwei very amiably with a smile. Jiang Ji-won's lips moved slightly. Of course she didn't want to admit defeat. However, there was the legendary three-eyed eagle in front of her and the red-tailed phoenix behind her. All of them were eyeing her covetously. She had no doubt that as long as she said continue, these two would attack at the same time. She had already used her totem power, but she still couldn't win, let alone now? Jiang Ji-won clenched her teeth, her lips and teeth filled with a thick bloody smell. She had wanted to use this opportunity to win against Duguyu and snatch back the title of number one, but she didn't expect it to develop into such a situation. She hadn't even officially fought with Duguyu, and she had already lost. In the dead silence, Jiang Ji-won closed her eyes and said word by word, I admit defeat. Eldest Miss Jiang is so straightforward. Chu Liwei wasn't stingy with his praise and praised sincerely. Jiang Ji-won's chest was stuffed with anger, and she almost died of suffocation. Digression, continue at 6 p.m. Chapter 1080. Finally, Jiang Hetian couldn't hold himself back anymore. He rushed forward to support Jiang Ji-won and brought her away. Zion, are you all right? Jiang Ji-won wiped the blood from the corner of her lips. Of course she wasn't all right. The consort selection test had already gone through 2 rounds, and the champion of both rounds was Duguyu. With such results, even if Duguyu couldn't become the consort, she would at least be able to stay in the Yuntian Tower. Just thinking about how she might have to face that face every day made Jiang Ji-won feel disgusted. If she didn't like Duguyu at the start, she was now filled with disgust. Jiang Hetian hurriedly ordered the heavenly doctor elder who had come with him to take Jiang Ziyuan's pulse. Old Su, how's Ziyuan? Jiang Hetian asked worriedly when he saw Old Su's frown. Old Su sighed. First, Missy's life isn't in danger, but she's injured internally. I'm afraid she'll need at least half a month to recover. How did this happen? Jiang Hetian was shocked. Ziyuan clearly set up her god domain earlier, and she even had the calming silk to block it. Even though the legendary three-eyed eagle is powerful, it shouldn't have caused such severe injuries. This, Old Su glanced at Jiang Ji-won. First, Missy should be more aware of this. That legendary three-eyed eagle is indeed powerful. Jiang Ji-won closed her eyes and retracted her hand. She tried her best to calm down. Even though she was furious, she didn't forget that this was the ethereal hall. Countless people were looking at them from all directions. In fact, it's even stronger than the crimson-tailed phoenix. She recalled everything that had happened earlier, and her heart still trembled. When the legendary three-eyed eagle made its move, she really felt the threat of death looming over her. That shouldn't be. Jiang Hetian was even more confused. Even though the legendary three-eyed eagle is also a divine beast, it shouldn't be stronger than the crimson-tailed phoenix. However, he knew that Jiang Ji-won wouldn't lie about this matter. After a moment of silence, Old Su lowered his voice. Patriarch, a cultivator can only form a contract with one divine beast. That Duguyu is obviously problematic. Perhaps that legendary three-eyed eagle is hiding something strange. Jiang Hetian furrowed his brows and shook his head. Forget it. You treat Ziyuan first. We'll talk about the rest later. Yes. Chu Liwei cupped his hands in the direction of the immortal water mausoleum and smiled. Eldest Miss Jiang, thank you for letting me win. Jiang Ji1 gritted her teeth, but in the end she did not flare up. Let her be smug for now. Chu Liwei then surveyed her surroundings, raised her brows and smiled lightly. Is there anyone else who doesn't agree with the current outcome? Everyone can come up and fight, I will accompany you to the end. Dead silence. What a joke. Even Jiang Ji1 had been beaten to such a state. Who would be so blind as to rush forward? Wasn't that just looking for trouble for himself? To divine beast. Would an ordinary person be able to bear it? It seems that no one has any objections. Rong Xiu, who was sitting at the head of the table, spoke lazily and calmly. Then the first place of the second round will also be Miss Dugu. Everyone had different expressions, but no one said anything else. Just then Rong Xiu suddenly stood up. Everyone turned to look at him strangely. Then they saw the handsome man in a black brocade robe with one hand behind his back, his thin scarlet lips slightly curved. I have only prepared 3 rounds for this consort selection ceremony. Now that Miss Dugu has won 2 of the rounds, there is no need to proceed with the last round. He raised his hand and pointed at the woman in red standing in the distance. The position of consort belongs to her. Everyone was shocked by his words. His Highness the Son of Saint had chosen the consort just like that. There was no third round, no foreshadowing, no warning. It was decided just like that? This was simply catching everyone off guard. Your Highness, you can't. Jiang Heqian stood up instinctively and shouted in a deep voice. The position of consort is extremely honorable. It concerns the prosperity of the Yuntian Tower and all the tribes. How can you make such a rash decision? Rong Xiu's lips curved into a faint smile, but there was no smile in his eyes. In the consort selection ceremony, all the tribes of the Yuntian Tower were invited. Not a single one was left behind. Moreover, the competition was carried out fairly and justly. Everyone saw it clearly and can be considered as witnesses. Now that the results are out, she is first in both rounds. Naturally, it was reasonable for her to be chosen as the princess. Why is it a rash decision when it comes to family head Jiang? Jiang Heqian choked, his heart burning with anxiety. If Dugu was chosen, then what about Ziyuan? He took a deep breath, his face dark. Could it be that His Highness had decided to choose Dugu as the consort from the beginning? Then what is the point of this round of competition? Dead silence. Only the Jiang family of the Immortal Water Mausoleum would dare to question Rong Xiu like this. Rong Xiu's smile faded and his eyes narrowed. I did not interfere in the consort selection ceremony from beginning to end. Could it be that I helped her get first place? Jiang Heqian was speechless. That's right, everyone here saw with their own eyes how Dugu won the 2 matches. They had no choice but to accept it. Jiang Heqian clenched his fists. He could see that Rong Xiu was interested in Dugu. Otherwise, he would not have insisted that she participate in the consort selection ceremony. But he had always thought that even if Dugu performed well, Rong Xiu would at most give her the status of a concubine. She was not even qualified to be a concubine. Therefore he had never taken Dugu seriously. But who would have thought that Rong Xiu would not only choose her, but also give her the position of consort? Where would the Immortal Water Mausoleum put their face? Seeing that this reason could not be used, Jiang Heqian immediately changed it. Your Highness, this woman's background is unknown. Even if you really want to make her your consort, you should first show her background to convince the crowd? As he spoke, he looked at Lin Tianfeng. If I remember correctly, Dugu came with clan head Lin and the others from Cave Heaven Cliff. But she doesn't seem to be from Cave Heaven Cliff? Lin Tianfeng was still immersed in the shock of Rong Xiu directly choosing Chu Liwei as consort. He did not react for a moment. Lin Qifei's lips moved slightly. Just as he was about to speak, a voice came from behind. She is indeed not from Cave Heaven Cliff. She is an outsider. Lin Qifei's heart skipped a beat. He turned back to look. The person who spoke was Lu Ruhai. At this moment, Lu Ruhai did not seem to notice Lin Qifei's warning look. He suddenly stood up and pointed at Chu Liwei in the main hall. She is just an ordinary woman who came from the outside world a few days ago. Chu Liwei looked at Lu Ruhai, narrowed her eyes and sneered in her heart. She knew that he would not give up so easily. So this was what he was waiting for. The moment the words outsider came out, a storm was set off in the main hall. However, Lu Ruhai did not seem to be satisfied. Sensing Chu Liue's gaze, he looked over with a cold glint in his eyes. Then he pointed at Dugu Mabao. Also, she does not have a fiancé. She is already married. She even has a child. Chapter 1081. The crowd was in an uproar. Not only was Dugu an outsider, but she also had a child? How could such a person become the princess consort? Discussions broke out as countless suspicious eyes fell on Chu Luiyue and Dugu Mabao. No wonder Cave Heaven Cliff brought a child over this time. So that's Dugu Yu's son? Since he's already married and has a child, how can he still participate in the princess consort selection ceremony? Isn't this a joke? This Dugu Yu is really bold. She played everyone in Yuntian Tower like a fiddle. She really can't be underestimated. A woman like her should be killed immediately. All kinds of voices filled his ears. Clearly, these two sentences of Lu Ruhai's made them extremely shocked. Lu Ruhai was secretly proud of himself when he saw that he had caused such a big commotion. He looked at Chu Luiyue arrogantly, wanting to see the panicked expression on her face. However, there was none. The woman still stood there quietly, as if she had turned a deaf ear to the words around her. Her ordinary face was calm. The way she looked at him was also very strange. It was as if she was sympathetic? Sympathetic? Lu Ruhai almost thought that he had seen wrongly. After being exposed in front of her, she would have a hard time in the coming days. How could she show such an expression at this time? At this moment, Jiang Hetian asked in a deep voice. Is what you said true? Lu Ruhai cupped his hands. I'm Lu Ruhai of Cave Heaven Cliff, the celestial physician of the Lin family. I can vouch on my reputation that what I said is true. On the way here, he had heard Lin Tianfeng and his son discuss with Dugu Yu several times about helping Dugu Mabao find his biological father. How could it be false? Jiang Hetian was secretly happy, but he did not show it on his face. He suddenly looked at Chu Luiyue. Dugu Yu, do you have anything to say about this? Chu Luiyue really sympathized with Lu Ruhai. A 9th-grade celestial physician was useless from today onwards. Why did he have to provoke De Bao of all people? It was fine to say that she was already married, but to say that De Bao was her son? Chu Luiyue quickly glanced at Dugu Mabao and saw that his delicate little face had turned completely black. Seeing that he was about to lose his temper, Chu Luiyue gave him a reassuring look, then looked at Jiang Hetian and said firmly, of course. Because what he said was all lies. Lu Ruhai sneered. Fake? Dugu Yu, for the sake of glory and wealth, you don't even want to acknowledge your own child. The patriarch and the 4th young master can bear witness to this matter. From the very beginning, you came here to find the man who abandoned you and your son. Now you still want to deny it. Many people looked at Lin Tianfeng and his son. They were the ones who brought her here, so naturally, their words were the most trustworthy. Lin Tianfeng frowned. Although it was beyond his expectations that the Saint Prince would choose Dugu Yu as his princess consort, he still hoped for the best for Dugu Yu. After all, she was Ji Fei's benefactor. If he nodded now, wouldn't he be putting Dugu Yu to death? Just as he was hesitating, Chu Luiyue spoke first. Patriarch Lin and the 4th young master will of course agree with what you said just now because in their hearts, this is indeed the case. However, what if I say that from the very beginning what I said was not true? Chu Luiyue's lips slowly curved into a sly smile. I said that I brought De Bao here to find someone. However, I have never personally admitted that De Bao and I are mother and son, and I have never admitted that the person we are looking for is his father. Patriarch Lin and the 4th young master can also bear witness to this. That's right. Lin Qifei pondered for a moment, then spoke with a serious expression. Miss Dugu has indeed never said these things herself. It's just my and father's speculation. A woman bringing a child to find someone, who else could she be looking for? In fact, it was reasonable for them to think this way. Lu Ruhai was stunned for a moment, then immediately clenched his teeth. If you say it's not, then it's not. What evidence do you have? Then what evidence do you have? Chu Luiyue immediately asked. Lu Ruhai was speechless. This matter had developed to this point, and it seemed to have become a dead knot. Everyone's eyes wandered back and forth between the few of them, not knowing who to believe. After a short silence, a voice came from the side. If Miss Dugu really has nothing to do with that child, why did she go through so much trouble to bring him from the outside world to the Divine Ruins world? Hearing this, Chu Luiyue looked in the direction of the voice. The one who spoke was Jiang Jiwon, who had just treated her wound. Her pretty and gentle face was now deathly pale, but it made her look even more delicate and pitiful, making her look even more pitiful and lovable. Also, since Miss Dugu is only a rank 7 warrior, then, how did she successfully pass through the door of the Divine Ruins world and come here? Her voice had returned to its usual calmness, as if she was not questioning, but simply asking a question. But these two questions hit the nail on the head. It was already very difficult for ordinary cultivators to break in from the outside world. Why did Dugu have to bring a child? How much trouble would that add? Not to mention with her current realm, it was impossible for her to enter. Everything was full of doubts. Of course it's because I want to, Chu Luiyue said with a smile. Also as for how I came in. Of course I came in with my own ability. Could it be that someone specially came to pick me up? Rong Xiu rubbed his nose. Yan Qing felt a chill down her spine and lowered her head. Umo scratched his head in confusion. Was he scolding Master or Yan Qing? But he quickly thought it through. He was still scolding Master. Yan Qing was not qualified. Jiang Jiwan felt that Chu Luiyue was simply pestering endlessly. She might as well not have answered these two questions. Wasn't she just running away? Miss Dugu, please answer my question directly. If you can't prove your innocence, then we really have reason to suspect that this child is really yours. A woman with a child wants to be the princess consort? Is she dreaming? Chu Luiyue raised her chin. May I ask, in what way does Debeo look like me? Everyone subconsciously sized up the two of them. One had purple hair and purple eyes, while the other had black hair and black eyes. They were really worlds apart. Moreover, the child was extremely beautiful, while Dugu, isn't it simple? He just looks like his father. Jiang Hetien pressed on. Dugu, since you admit that you came to Yuntian Tower to look for someone, why don't you find that person now and confront him face to face to see who this child is? Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. Are you sure? Jiang Hetien sneered. Why you don't dare? That's not it. Chu Luiyue rubbed her chin then turned to Rong Xiu. Your Highness, they insist that this is your child. Why don't you come and identify it yourself? Digression, there was another slightly later, around 7 o'clock. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.